Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Let Me Die in Peace. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! A dramatic scene unfolds in the Imperial Palace as Ophelia, a stunning empress with silver hair and purple eyes, sits on her throne, her head resting on her palm. She stares sluggishly at her half-brother, who has tanned skin and emerald eyes, and his entire legion of knights surround her. Behind him stands a blue-haired man who begins to accuse her of crimes such as poisoning her brother's mother, Empress Sitara, and attempting to conceal the Emperor's will. As soon as they announce that Ophelia's sentence is death, she yawns as if she knows it's coming and wants it to be over immediately. And then they start arrow-bombing her mercilessly. Okay, it was intense. Ophelia struggles for air as she awakens from her death, still feeling the anguish where the final arrow struck her. She cries helplessly, longing to die, but coming back to life is nothing new for her. This is her fourth death, and she has no idea when it will stop. Our poor girl has transmigrated to the novel, The Crown Prince's Return. But the worst part is that she has entered the body of the story's villain, Princess Ophelia. In the novel, Ophelia locks up her half-brother, Prince Iwout, in a tower and murders his mother. To sum up the story, the main character, Prince, triumphed over overwhelming odds to become emperor after he not only defeated Ophelia, but also ensured her horrible end. However, with like any transmigration story, Ophelia's ending doesn't frighten her at first, given that she can just ensure that she's a different and better version of the so-called villain. So, during her first life as Ophelia, she became Ewout's caring sister, freed him from the tower, and despite the prince's young age, gave the throne up to him. She then had a blissful marriage with the future head of the magic tower, Kirsten as a cherry on top. But even after altering the story, becoming the villainess is etched into her character because her husband, whom she thought was simply an extra in the novel, isn't as innocent as he appears. Kirsten wants her to be the empress and has already made arrangements behind her back, leading her to become a traitor and put to death by beheading. She assumed that was it for her life as Ophelia, but then she awakens 10 years before her execution. She can't believe her happy ending was ruined because her husband was secretly plotting treason. She trembles and believes she has returned to life because she did not follow the original novel. So she has no choice except to act like the villainous Ophelia in order to ensure she stops coming back to life. However, regardless of how wicked she gets in her succeeding lives, Iwout always ensures that she has a gruesome death. Even though she knows that a villain like her will inevitably die, now in her 5th lifetime, she is determined to find a means to end her life as painlessly as possible. That's just sad. Rather than finding a way to live, she simply wants her death to be peaceful. She has decided not to fear her 5th life, for she intends to die without pain. But this is easier said than done because Iwout constantly wants to give her the most brutal death. While planning her life, she can't help but wish Sitara was still alive. She is Ewout's mother and a maid from a northern village chosen by her father, the Emperor. Ophelia has returned to life 5 times now, but each time it has been after she killed Sitara. It would have been nice if she woke up earlier and stopped her villainous character from murdering Sitara. Then Iwout wouldn't detest her as much. Whoever is orchestrating her revival has our girl suffering in their sights. The fact that her servants rush to her side as she sighs and begs for forgiveness just serves to highlight how wicked her character is. She is a villain who wasn't created to die gently, which makes her life difficult. Inside the palace, Ophelia, still unclear of the timeline she is in, asks her personal maid how long it has been since Iwout was imprisoned and discovers that it has been exactly a year. Ophelia can only think of one way to die gently, and that is to convince Iwout to kill her without mercy. I assume you guys have already considered the possibility that Ophelia could murder Iwout, haven't you? But since he's the protagonist, he has this perk that makes him invincible. Even now, Ophelia is alarmed that the young Iwout hasn't caught a cold in a constrained tower, implying that he has suffered greatly yet is unable to die. Just thinking about how much the kid hates her now makes her tremble with fear, and she doubts she will ever die peacefully. Speaking of the main character, Ewout Lidania, the Emperor's only son, is currently gazing out his small window. Aw, he's just a cutie patootie here. It'd be great to watch him and Ophelia get close. Anyway, he wishes to leave the tower and enjoy the sunshine, but this is impossible, so his loyal maid, Shauna, can't help but cry as she watches him. After that, Shauna starts ranting at the young prince, saying things like, "Remember who locked you up and killed your mother? Ophelia." I have a feeling this maid will make it even harder for Iwout to warm up to his sister. Iwout frantically hushes his maid, concerned that someone could hear them, but it's too late. The little one, Ophelia, is outside the door and hears everything. Shauna refuses to stop and urges Iwout to stay alive until the Emperor saves him. But with a smile, Ophelia enters, dispelling Shauna's claims that the ailing Emperor will undoubtedly not be able to save Iwout. In her fear that the princess has come to harm Iwout, Shauna blocks her quickly, prompting Ophelia to subconsciously release her wicked aura as a warning that Shauna should brace herself for certain death. Ophelia then quickly shuts her mouth. She then looks very hurt seeing Iwout again, since her first life, Iwout was a sweet brother to her. But in the end, he ordered her death, making her believe that the lovely side of him was all fake. She stops thinking and pushes Iwout to decide whether he wants to leave the tower. The boy gets the creeps and suspects that Ophelia plans to kill him. Despite being young, he understands that Ophelia may have a purpose for wanting to release him and fears that she might put him to death on the battlefield. Ophelia shows no mercy as she mocks him, reminding him that the Emperor will never come to his rescue. Even worse, she laughs at him, suggesting that their father is so unwell that he may soon die and join his mother. This obviously frightens the little child, but she persists and points out to him that she is the only one who can let him out. She taps him on the head and demands that he decide whether to wait for the Emperor or to join her out of the tower, making Iwout seem both teary and determined. Ophelia smiles as she wants to see Iwout's eyes filled with hatred and terror for her since, after so many lifetimes, she realizes that it's not only her husband, Kirsten, who ruined her first life, but also herself. In the novel, Ophelia confronts Sitara, claiming that the Emperor has no affection for her and warning her that she intends to eliminate anyone who stands in the way of the throne. Sitara, who appears powerless, kneels before her, offering to give up her life as long as Ophelia does not kill her son Iwout. After Sitara kissed Ophelia's hand to seal their agreement, news began to circulate that Sitara had poisoned herself. So when she transmigrated and suddenly appeared to be a nice and caring sister, she believes Iwout thinks that it was all a scheme. Okay, so she figures Iwout simply pretended to forgive her, and now she intends to maintain her villainous persona while remaining likable, so future Iwout will not brutally kill her. Ophelia then leaves the room open, not pressuring Iwout or acting kind to him, but giving him the option to follow her. She walks out, and after a little moment, a small hand holds onto her dress. Iwout, who does not want to be locked up anymore. Ophelia smiles as her plan works, and Iwout overcomes his fear of her. Shauna then cries that following Ophelia is dangerous, but the little boy has had enough of being locked up, and either way, he would be in danger, so why not get out? Instead of trying to console her younger brother, she criticizes him, calling him a small and dirty little kitten. This makes Iwout so embarrassed that he stops crying. It was such a sweet exchange. The servants take Iwout for a hot bath infused with lavender, lemons, and herbs, and they apply 42 different kinds of bombs to him. They then prepared him in a bright-colored fit they referred to as basic clothing, causing the adorable wet kitty to stand terrified. But thankfully, Shauna arrived with the perfect attire for him, making him appear so dashing. Iwout is astounded by how beautiful the garden is and is unable to control his delight, prompting Shauna to warn him that Ophelia is dangerous and that he should not relax his guard. Ophelia invites him to brunch with her, so when he notices the server shake as she pours the tea that accidentally splatters on the table and witnesses Ophelia's reaction, he realizes Shauna is correct. He should not be persuaded since Ophelia has a tendency to turn wicked. Though Ophelia thinks she can relax for the day since she was able to get Iwout out of the tower, their silence makes the situation awkward and uncomfortable for both of them. She can't believe she's eating with him and decides not to keep quiet, telling him that they will be having lunch together from that day onwards, which surprises Iwout. And he reacts even more when she refers to him as a prince, which surprises the maids, who believes this is a sign that the world is ending. Iwout is at a loss for words as Ophelia continues to tell him of every subject he needs to study, and he is even more weighed down when she adds that he needs to learn swordsmanship. Iwout is concerned and scared because he suspects she has intentions to murder him by drowning him in studies. He is even more puzzled when she smiles sweetly and compliments his looks while encouraging him to eat his meal. She then informs him that he will be residing in the Rose Palace, the same one where his mother Sitara once lived. Ophelia asks him how many maids he needs because it will be difficult for Shauna to manage the massive palace alone. But their conversation is cut short when her servant reports to her of Sir Kirsten's arrival. Just hearing his name makes her lose her composure, knocks her utensils to the ground, and prompts her to tell him to leave. Iwout is so surprised by her reactions, but our girl here can't help being so scared, as Kirsten Kalaman Erhard is the person she married in her first life. Despite the fact that he was only an extra in the novel, she believes they were meant to be, at least until he committed treason without her knowledge, causing her death. So she resolves to stay away from him at all costs in this life. Iwout can't help but ask her because she seems terrified, as if she's seen a ghost, and he wonders if Kirsten is an evil person. Ophelia calms down and explains that Kirsten is not a bad person, but rather an excellent mage. She goes on to say that Kirsten is now being branded as the next Magic Tower Master because the previous one has gone missing. He was picked not because there was no other choice, but because he possesses limitless mana in a world where magic and mages are becoming extinct. If you ask me, this guy doesn't sound like an extra. Ophelia maintains her cool and directs Iwout's attention to the food. But in reality, she is sweating so much as she doesn't want Iwout to remember that Kirsten came to see her today, since if Kirsten causes trouble in the future, Iwout may suspect her as well. However, her smart little brother keeps asking about Kirsten and trying to figure out why he visited, which makes her shudder. Iwout notices this and begins rambling that the question is not meant to ridicule her because the mage is more powerful than her, but rather because he is simply interested, having only read about mages in history books. Iwout is startled because Ophelia's vicious red eyes are staring at him, and he realizes that he wasn't supposed to be reading. Since Ophelia forbade him from having books while he was in confinement, she believes that Shauna disobeyed her by giving him books. Iwout trembles, and his eyes are filled with terror as he believes Shauna will die as a result of his chatty mouth. But he is taken aback when Ophelia simply smiles and stands up to visit the Emperor while letting him roam around his new palace. This doesn't make sense to Iwout, so he stutters in panic and apologizes, but he doesn't know what else to say. So Ophelia cuts him off and gives him a chilly glare, wondering if he's sorry for defying her orders. This leads a little child to freeze in fear while Ophelia grins at him as if she was simply teasing him. Even though he has no idea why Ophelia let it slip, he and the maids can't help but breathe a sigh of relief when she leaves. Well, everyone, you're not the only one who feels relieved. Our poor girl also takes out her stress while no one is looking. She's so stressed out from answering Iwout's questions that it might actually kill her. But because of how anxious Iwout is over the books, she is sure he's already forgotten about Kirsten. Just then, a servant runs to her and hands her a little teddy bear, or so she thinks. Because after holding it, it becomes so large that she can't even hug it with both hands. The sender is none other than Kirsten, and to make matters worse, he intends to come back. So Ophelia has no choice but to instruct her servants to inform Kirsten that she is away since she never plans to see him, ever. Here she stands in front of her father's chamber, a place she has detested visiting for as long as she can remember. She tiptoes to his desk, placing the documents there, and wants to escape immediately, but this is not her day because the Emperor is awake. The Emperor, Kanes Lidania, sits down and clearly dislikes her. He generally blames Ophelia for everything, and she is now waiting to hear about his concerns for the day. It appears the Emperor is already aware that she released Iwout from prison. This makes her wonder who reports to him, but instead of answering her inquiry, the Emperor reminds her that he will crown Iwout Emperor and never her. Ophelia stands there bored since she already knows the Emperor will die this year and leaves a will indicating that the throne belongs to Iwout. The Emperor's attitude toward her remained unchanged to the end, and he always saw her as ruthless and cruel. She then looks at him as he trembles in rage while holding a cup of water, expecting it to be splashed all over her, as it has always been in every lifetime. From the lifetime she died from an arrow to the time she was burned at the stake, even when Iwout and Kirsten were by her side, the Emperor never lets her go without throwing her water. So she braces herself today, but she instinctively avoids the cup, causing the Emperor to become agitated and accuse her, as if he is certain Ophelia would kill Iwout. She responds, reminding her father that he was the one who turned his back on Sitara first, and that it is ridiculous that he is now acting so concerned about Iwout. But she still assures him that his precious son will not die, but rather that his loathed daughter will die in his son's hands. The Emperor screams at her, believing she's going insane, and before she leaves his room, she delivers him a hint that Iwout will become Emperor when he turns 20. Now that she is outside the chamber, she instructs the head maid to check on him because the emperor is coughing so much. As she tries her hardest to hold back her tears and steady her voice, she can't help but feel sick to her stomach at the emperor accusing his own daughter. Next, Ophelia orders the head maid to investigate who has been informing the emperor, or she will be the one to die. The following morning, Ophelia receives word that no one wants to be Ewout's tutor, as Iwout sits in the corner listening to this. As his big sister, she knows that this hurts his feelings, so she assures him in a rather uncomforting tone that it isn't his fault. The kitten sits quietly, studying on his own, but he is taken aback when Ophelia offers to help him with his studies for the time being, thinking that he is being a nuisance. She grumbles and right away reminds him that he is the prince and tutoring him is far preferable to seeing the emperor. When these siblings share glances, they begin to feel awkward, leading Ophelia to realize she has acted too friendly. However, what's done is done, so she keeps a stern look and allows him to leave her office. Before leaving, Iwout can't help but remember what he witnessed yesterday on his way to his room alone. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he spotted Ophelia crying, which has troubled him till now. He is so disturbed that he decides to ask her why she allowed him out of the tower and didn't kill him. A blunt question that surprised Ophelia, but ends with her stating that he is someone so valuable that he must do something for her in the future. That night, Amy comes to her door with a flower that only grows in the north that glows, and Ophelia finds out that it was another gift from Kirsten. Kirsten presented her with her nightgown, bedding, and now flowers. Even the massive teddy bear is in her room, which Ophelia believes is the reason Amy has softened towards her and remains to smile so brightly. Not only that, but Amy informs Ophelia that Kirsten intends to pay her another visit, which gives her goosebumps, forcing her to act before something terrible happens. This is now Amy's point of view, and welcome to her adventure into the afterlife. She smiles so nervously as she mentally writes her diary because, in contrast to her typical day as a maid for the most brutal person in the world, tonight she truly believes she's going to die. Not only are they outside the palace now, but they are now in a creepy area. Amy watches as Ophelia trips and stresses that her father's family would perish if the princess had her toenails damaged. Ripped her cloak? Means the end of her mother's side. Amy's reasoning for her family's execution is hilarious. The worst part of Amy's night is when Ophelia runs into a man drenched in blood. Hey, Mr. Gorgeous, are you the main male character? Ophelia is looking around as they continue to walk through the alley wrapped in yellow paper, when she accidentally bumps into a firm and smells a fishy man, who is now looking at her as she gets chills from seeing that he is covered in blood. The next thing she knows, she loses her footing and grows frightened that she will suffer a serious injury from the jagged nails and shards of glass that litter the ground. You may be expecting a romantic hand-on-the-back catch, but nope. This guy merely grabs her robe, enough for her not to fall. Amy panics as she holds Ophelia, while the man merely remarks that Ophelia must be a woman looking for men to pleasure her. Amy becomes more scared as the man adds that this is a human trafficking place with yellow posters advertising such services. Looking at how Amy trembles, Ophelia goes over to her and calms her down. The man is surprised because he has never seen an aristocrat console a maid, and he immediately leaves, figuring he scared Ophelia sufficiently to send her home. The man then knocks on a house door, and his younger brother excitedly opens it, anticipating his return home that day. But as he pats his younger brother's head, he pauses because his brother smells the aroma of Ophelia off him, which lingers. Is he an ally or the ML? Meanwhile, Amy is persuading Ophelia to go home, reminding her that the man revealed to them that the location is where people are bought and sold. But Ophelia insists on finding something there. She's actually looking for the Assassin's Guild symbol, a yellow tavern sign that illuminates at night, in order to purchase the man she met a while ago. The man's name is Now, and he was formerly the best assassin before falling into poverty and becoming a guild slave. She believes he's fairly expensive based on his slavery contract, but she is confident that he is worth it because he is a vital character in the original novel and will play an important role in her future plans. Now that Now is kneeling and blindfolded in front of her, Ophelia demands to know why he is covered in bruises because he is now under her care, and seeing him hurt upsets her. She then learns from Now that his bruises are the result of his former master. The guild leader dislikes the fact that a powerful person like her bought him. When Ophelia removes his blindfold, he immediately recognizes her as the woman he met in the alley. Ophelia introduces herself to him, and he is startled to learn that she is the Empire's princess. But he is curious as to why she wants him. Ophelia informs him that she needs him for security, spying, assassination, and other reasons. Hearing the word assassination, he knows that the princess is notorious for her viciousness, and immediately thinks of a person she intends to assassinate, and the prince comes to mind. So he blatantly informs her that if she is planning to assassinate the prince, he cannot carry out orders to murder the imperial family. But to his surprise, Ophelia tells him that he will be using his assassination skills on her instead of the prince. She orders him to kill her with no pain, which confuses Now even more and wants to know her goal. Ophelia already predicted that Now would not follow her easily, so she laid out her plan that his assassination will appear as if she killed herself. She will arrange a place for him outside the nation, and to further entice him, she tosses glittering jewels in front of him. Ophelia figures that he'll be tempted because, with that, his little brother will no longer be impoverished and he can even support his education, making it difficult for him to refuse her offer. She is even willing to burn his slave contract when she hears him declare that he can't follow her commands because the punishment for betraying an imperial family is collective, which means his brother would be executed too. In the original story, Now despised her more than anyone else. He was always Iwout's right-hand man and betrayed her, which is why she tries to keep him close so she can control him. He is also the blue-haired guy who proclaims her death sentence during her 4th life. But now she can't understand him passing up the opportunity to kill her, so she throws more jewels at him. But his response is firm, telling her to simply kill him instead. Her persuasive moment is cut short when Iwout knocks on her door and requests to see her. But she must convince Now to be by her side before he meets Iwout. However, Now is too firm to change his decision, so she decides to change her plans. She leaves her room, sees Iwout, and asks him if he wants to accompany her to the capital festival while putting a note on her room that anyone who comes in will be executed, leaving Now alone inside. The duo begins to make their way to the capital, looking very stunning in their outfit. Well, Ophelia has an objective for attending the festival. She wants to find Nayu, Now's younger brother. In the novel, in order to make ends meet when Now isn't around, Nayu engages in pickpocketing and sells flowers for a gangster group. And our girl intends to hold Nayu hostage, which will force Now to obey her orders. Now that she's so set on finding the child, she realizes that her younger sibling is acting very curious about everything around him, which is understandable given that the kitten spent an entire year confined to a tower. She looks around and discovers a cotton candy store, so she gives Iwout one, wraps her scarf around him, and lets him walk around. However, as an evil sister, Iwout believes this is her way of abandoning him on the streets, but that thought immediately fades when Ophelia beams at him warmly, hoping he will have fun. They are so cute. After little Iwout wanders away with his cotton candy, Ophelia begins her quest for Nayu. Shauna had actually given Iwout some money to spend, so he starts walking about, hoping to find something to buy, when he comes across the kid Ophelia has been looking for, selling beautiful flowers. Iwout stares at the flowers with warmth and quickly returns to Ophelia, clearly shy, as he surprises his sister with the flowers he bought. This is Lil Bro's way of showing his sister how much he appreciates all of her help with him, even if he's too shy to look her in the eye. No, the progress in their relationship. Shauna has been warning him about Ophelia's danger, but after seeing her vulnerable and tearful face, he can't help but want to encourage her not to cry again. However, when Ophelia smiles while holding the flower he gave her and begins patting his head, he blushes so much that he's unable to bring up the topic. Such a cutie baby. Ophelia then suggests out of nowhere that Iwout should start learning economics, which confuses her brother. So she refers to the missing scarf around his neck, which is worth 400 gold, and guesses that Iwout traded it for the flowers. Shocked that it has disappeared, Iwout begins to reflect on his day and concludes that Nayu must have taken it. He begins to freak out and explains what happened to Ophelia. He apparently values the scarf very much, as he hurries furiously to the spot where he last saw Nayu, with Ophelia trailing behind him despite her poor stamina. That exhausted face is definitely not one of a villainess. Iwout discovers Nayu in an alley, but is surprised to see the blue-haired child begging for help with injured knees. Ophelia sees a large man standing behind Nayu. She recognizes him as the bully who robs the helpless boy of his money. Although he persuades Nayu into stealing, he retains the entirety of the earnings for himself. This guy needs to learn some lessons. He then grabs Nayu and tells the siblings that the boy stole his scarf, which is obviously a lie given that the scarf belongs to Ewout. And our little prince here heard Nayu begging for help. Despite his fear, Nayu clings to the scarf, refusing to give it to the ugly guy because he believes it will be enough to keep his older brother from having to do risky jobs. Poor kid needs help! Ophelia sees that Ewout is trembling and itching to help Nayu, so she taps his shoulder, and with her signature evil stare, she asks him for his opinion on what she should do. Iwout is surprised, but takes the chance to point out that even though Nayu stole the scarf, it's still wrong to assault a child. And at the snap of Ophelia's finger, royal guards appear like ninjas and begin teaching the old man a lesson. It's good to know that these royal siblings weren't strolling alone. She then comes over to the terrified Nayu and gladly offers him a hand, knowing that, thanks to Iwout, she was able to get hold of Nayu without using force. They are now back in the palace with Nayu resting on Ophelia's lap and now looking at her with rage because his brother is definitely her hostage. She offers now a choice: either carry out her command to kill her or face immediate execution. Not just him, but also his brother Nayu. Now instantly kneels, swearing to be Ophelia's devoted servant and promising to kill her as she wishes. Her scheme has worked yet again, and she has him vow to kill her so cleanly that she will not feel any pain. Everything is going according to her plan, but this is just so sad to hear. They then move to a different room so Nayu does not wake up, and she gives him a rare ring made from mana stones that allows the bearer to change their appearance. Ophelia then continues with her plan, giving Now a new identity and the name Philip. As the ring's magical effects take effect on Now, he can't help but question why someone as powerful as her would desire to die. This shocks her, but she just stares with dead eyes, as she doesn't have a clear answer she can give. I hope Now still looks handsome, though. Princess Ophelia summons the two children and informs Iwout that Nayu will be staying with them at the Imperial Palace, hoping that they will get along. These kids will be competing for her attention, I just know it. She goes on to introduce Philip, Iwout's new servant, who… I was hoping he'd look just as intimidating as his former self now, but instead he comes out as nerdy and slender. I guess he looks much more like a regular servant now. He isn't used to being Philip yet, and he scares Iwout when he speaks to him, so Big Sister has to step in and poke Philip in the side, reminding him that he is now a servant, not an assassin. He then begins the whole thing all over again, this time timidly introducing himself to Iwout and Nayu, as Ophelia watches on triumphantly. Why? Because after the festival and the winter end, the Emperor's death will follow, which marks the beginning of the original novel. Even though she will still die as a villainess, her plan will make her death less brutal, as Now will now kill her before Iwout does. That night, Ophelia and Philip are walking in the garden, with Ophelia revealing that she hired his younger brother as Iwout's friend, and that the boy is so meticulous that he drafted a contract ensuring his security and money. This enrages Philip because his brother is still a child and is presently working for a nasty princess, so he threatens Ophelia, which she cuts off and wonders if he would kill her, which she claims is fantastic. Philip is offended by the ease with which she discusses death, but Ophelia is simply relieved that she'll die gently in this life and begins singing when suddenly she steps into something. With lightning speed, Philip protects her and begins to confront whoever's attempting to harm Ophelia. However, he is so baffled when he discovers that there are only rabbits around. A maid immediately approaches them and informs them that while Ophelia was at the festival, Kirsten stopped by and performed a spell in her garden, hoping that her every step would be filled with surprises. Like, literally. Philip is just waiting for her orders and would gladly take down the guy, but she assures him that it is purely a gift. However, she acknowledges that Kirsten will not stop sending her gifts, and she believes that it will soon become the talk of the town, which she suspects is Kirsten's intention. She holds one cute bunny, notices its resemblance to Kirsten, and finds it quite annoying, but then allows the rabbit to give her a peck while wondering why he keeps coming back. Ma'am, what is this? Does she still have feelings for him? I hope not. Despite the fact that it is already late that night, Ophelia decides to visit Erhard's manor, aka her ex-husband's mansion. When they show up unannounced, Kirsten is taken aback to find Ophelia outside. As she stands outside Kirsten's house, she wonders if it was a mistake to come see him, as the people inside run scared that she has shown up. And what about the man she's looking for? Well, he has not yet stepped out of the shower. Being alone, she wonders if she should have just ignored him because she knows he won't give up on his true goal so easily. But she also fears that doing so will only make him angrier. So she tries to remember Kirsten as more than just her ex-husband and the man who will lead the magic tower in the future. She recalls when he first pushed her to become empress and understood that treason was all he ever bothered about, and that he craved more power, which she had previously overlooked because he is adept at concealing his actual goals. Excited that Ophelia is coming to see him, Kirsten dashes inside the room, even though he is still partially damp. She stares at him hesitantly and asks him to dry himself first, noting that he is really handsome. I agree, but let's not relive the past, ma'am. Kirsten merely ignores what she said, telling her that he could have gone to the palace if she had informed him, and he wonders why she shows up so late at night. Like, duh, cunning man, you are the one who keeps bothering our girl. But Ophelia knows that Kirsten is simply trying to provoke her, but sorry, you can no longer have any influence over her. So she surprises Kirsten by revealing that the person she came to meet and ask for a favor is actually his brother Arsad, not him. Kirsten's older brother, Arsad Erhard, is skilled in martial arts, and he gladly accepts Ophelia's request to teach Ewout swordsmanship. Kirsten, on the other hand, looks upset and thinks Ophelia is just teasing him, so he asks her to tell him what she really wants. So, Ophelia clarifies all of this, telling him that's all she came for and is set to go, leaving Kirsten to giggle before giving up and telling her that he would do whatever she commands. However, Ophelia is aware that he would never reveal anything to her, so she intends to keep Kirsten by her side as a means to control him. Yup, keep your enemies closer. As a result, she informs him that the prince also requires a tutor for academic subjects, which he readily agrees. Then she asks him to use his magic to revive and preserve the flowers that Ewout gave her, emphasizing that presents do not have to be lavish to be significant. But this guy is really something, as he disagrees with her, claiming that bigger and rarer gifts are preferable. Definitely hinting that he loves her so much that he would give the throne to her. Kirsten's behavior begins to irritate her, so that night she gives him the order to cease delivering presents to the Imperial Palace. He complies, but now our girl is really anxious. What troubles her the most is that she has no idea what Kirsten's actual objective is until someone interrupts her stream of thought, and she realizes she is at a cabinet meeting. Starting the conversation, Duke Saccart advises Ophelia to put her festival break behind her and concentrate on overseeing the Empire. The Duke is actually her grandfather, so she can't act too villainous towards him. That explains why they have matching purple eyes. They then resume the meeting, and the cabinet begins to discuss the groups of healers who travel around the slums, treating people by opening their bodies and stitching them back up. In the modern world, we name them doctors, so Ophelia sees nothing wrong with having more healers, but her statements have enraged the nobles, who are opposed to healers and want them removed. They believe that any treatment must be carried out at the temple using the priest's divine power. In other words, only the wealthy can receive treatment. Ophelia wants the meeting to end, but it's going on longer than she expected. Meanwhile, the children are now in class, but Iwout is quite uneasy because the teacher in front of him is the reason Ophelia was so shocked when they first ate together. Uh-oh, looks like Lil Bro hasn't forgotten about it. Iwout once confronted Arsad, his swordsmanship teacher, and told him that he suspects Kirsten, an exceptional mage, brainwashed Ophelia, forcing Arsad to disclose that he is that mage's brother. Iwout is becoming increasingly concerned after learning that even Kirsten's brother is now at the Imperial Palace, and he wishes to speak with his sister personally, but he hasn't seen her since their festival break. However, Iwout has beef not only with Kirsten, but also with Nayu. He thinks Nayu is special since Ophelia herself announced his stay at the palace. He begins overthinking during class and concludes that Nayu must be their half-brother, and Ophelia pushes the two of them to compete with the goal of eliminating whichever is weakest. He gets a queasy feeling just thinking about it, so he leaves his class to go outside and get some air. Shauna then finds Iwout and assumes he is skipping class because he does not want to eat lunch with Ophelia, unaware that this is exactly what he wants, lunch with his sister. But his enthusiasm soon drops as he remembers that Nayu would likely join them for lunch, so he lazily strolls over to their normal spot to eat. The life in his eyes returns as he notices that the flower he gave to Ophelia is the centerpiece of the table. And Amy gleefully adds that the princess even asked Kirsten to apply preservation magic to it. Shauna feels awful about it, so Amy glares back at her, advising her not to talk ill of her master. I love Amy. She's becoming more loyal to our girl. Finally, Ophelia's dreadful meeting is over, and she declines the noble's invitation to a lunch since she intends to eat with her little brother. But talk about timing. Her grandfather, Duke Saccart, heard her lunch plans with her half-brother, something the Duke definitely disapproves of given that he is a direct descendant of the founding line and her blood relative. However, she can't find an excuse to stop talking to the Duke until someone approaches them and interrupts their conversation. Ewout is also patiently waiting for Ophelia, but becomes disappointed that the person who arrives is only Nayu, as Ophelia requested because she has unexpected work to do. Ophelia escaped her grandfather, but now she must deal with the priest and visit the temple. To explain what happened, it was Arsad who interrupted her and Duke Saccart to inform her that the high priest wanted to see her. This is the only way she can get away, so she accepts and leaves with him. They are now on the temple grounds, and Arsad, the gentleman of the Erhard brothers, wraps his cloak around her since the weather is cold. Ophelia knows he probably does it without thinking, and she's not wrong, as he only recently recognized what he's done and blushingly explains that it has no meaning. Then, once he has composed himself, he asks for her hand as he leads her inside the temple. "I'm still looking for the main lead. Is it you, Mr. Innocent-looking handsome guy?" Anyway, they're now inside, and as expected, the high priest is requesting her opinion on the healers. She is tired of dealing with these petty issues, but she understands that the temple and the nobles are on the same side, and if she opposes now, it could ignite a fire when Iwout needs to kill her. However, now that she has the best assassin, now, on her side, she no longer cares and expresses her true feelings and intentions to support the healers. This alarms the high priest, who tell her that this decision will undoubtedly result in an uproar from the nobles, but she's unbothered about what will come of it. Ophelia understands that no matter how much she flatters the nobles, they will eventually abandon her and follow Iwout in the future, so she intends to do what she believes is right: help the healers. As she braces herself for the high priest's judgment, the white-bearded old man surprises her by praising her virtue, and even Arsad backs it up. This isn't what she was hoping for, and her heart races with fear that if she appears to be a good person, they will suspect that she is simply acting. Yet Arsad persists in her disagreement, well aware that she saved Nayu from poverty, which only shows she's really a decent person. Ophelia is so at ease that she asks what's in her tea and discovers that it's a medical tea that can alleviate her exhaustion. Before asking the high priest to leave the room so she can rest, she requests that he send a priest to the imperial palace. The tea reminds her of her hidden feelings about how unfair life is to her, despite the fact that she has done nothing wrong. But she believes that feeling sorry for Iwout and accepting that she deserves death will make her life easier. So she falls asleep with tears in her eyes. All our girl has are pent-up emotions and no one to lean on. After a while, Arsad wakes Ophelia up and escorts her back to the imperial palace. As soon as she returns, her thoughts immediately turn to Iwout since she was unable to join their lunch together. As a result, she makes the decision to go to a location where the children will most likely pass by after they have finished eating. In the original novel, Iwout and Nayu are actually best friends, so she expects to see them chatting and having fun together, but instead, she sees Iwout pass by looking distressed, followed by Nayu, who is shaking in nervousness. Iwout feels bitter that Ophelia isn't taking her word to always eat lunch together seriously. When she approaches him, he feels happy that she hasn't forgotten her promise. Unaware of what is truly going on with Iwout, she unconsciously adds salt to his wounds by appreciating Nayu as his friend and even allowing them to skip class to have fun. Ophelia merely believes that the children had an argument and should speak it out, so she cheerfully invites them to tea together. However, it is clear from their expressions that neither Iwout nor Nayu are enthusiastic about spending time together. After rejecting her invitation on the grounds that he has homework, Iwout storms out in a fit of rage. Nayu, who remains standing and appears so downcast, expresses his view that Iwout is honestly sad, confusing Ophelia as she is certain she did nothing to cause Iwout to be hurt. This little boy of 10 must now explain that he is blocking Iwout and her from getting close because of his presence. Ophelia thinks about it and realizes that Nayu is suggesting that Iwout is jealous, which she finds difficult to believe. So Nayu goes on to say that while they were having lunch together, Iwout pouted, constantly checking the time and patiently waiting for her to come. Then he suggests that Ophelia speak with Iwout, and then, as if he's had enough of these siblings, he says that the decision is hers to make, which makes Ophelia wonder how old this kid is. All of this street living has made this little kid so mature and clever. Ophelia goes to the field for some fresh air and continues to believe that Nayu is mistaken, claiming that Iwout could not possibly be jealous. The fact that things aren't going according to her plans infuriates her. Speaking about one of the anomalies in her plans, Kirsten approaches and offers her a bouquet, which she declines, but instead bluntly asks him why he keeps coming to visit her. Kirsten becomes serious and surprises Ophelia when he asks her to come closer. However, when he asserts, without his customary comedic antics, that he is willing to tell her anything as long as it's whispered, she decides to follow, but only after she warns him not to insult her. Suddenly, the wind becomes so strong that Kirsten has to pull off romantic moves to prevent her from falling before swearing that he will never disrespect her. Because of the tight distance between them, and while Kirsten is wearing a stern expression, Ophelia notices that Kirsten's eye color has changed. But as he is ready to reveal the truth to her, he suddenly stops speaking, as if someone is preventing him and his severe headache forces him to kneel, all the while gripping Ophelia's arm. He doesn't realize that he is already squeezing Ophelia's arm until she screams out in pain, which prompts him to immediately apologize, remark that he might have to inform her the next time, and then snap his finger and poof, he's gone. The fact that Ophelia has never witnessed Kirsten in such an intense state of pain before is only adding to the confusion that she's dealing with at the moment. Should we add him again to the potential main lead list? Afterwards, she goes to check on Iwout and discovers that he is sound asleep. The novel portrays Iwout's upbringing as one of his depressing moments, as if every day were so unbearable that he's like swallowing chunks of ice. For this reason, regardless of whether Nayu's claim that Iwout feels jealousy is true, Ophelia is adamant about keeping her little brother out of her heart. As she runs her fingers over Iwout's hair, memories of her own tragic deaths flood back, making it clear that she could never love him. However, as she prepares to leave, she witnesses Iwout crying in his sleep while calling his mother, which is surprisingly painful for her to see. A new day has begun, and Iwout has finally cracked a smile. This is because he recalls someone brushing his head and believes it was a really pleasant dream because it makes his heart feel so much lighter today. He is on his way to his classroom when he discovers an angel sleeping in the garden. "Girl, why are you sleeping there like you're a painting?" Ophelia appears to be sleeping peacefully, making Iwout anxious that she's dead, so he goes to check on her, but is surprised when she twitches. He falls down and shrieks unintentionally, waking up our beautiful angel, who gets up to ask what happened to him, so he looks down and shyly explains that he was concerned she wasn't breathing. Ophelia changes the subject and brings up Nayu again, pointing out to him that he can express his concerns to the kid, which makes Iwout's heart break again. She recognizes that her comments are hurting Iwout, but she has no intention of comforting him. Instead, she clarifies that she is only proposing that having a friend help ease his pain. Then she confronts her little brother, declaring that she can never be nice to him and that he must not be nice to her either. But it does not change the fact that he is the one person closest to her since he is her brother. This surprises Iwout, as he never thought Ophelia considered him as her brother, but the way she looks now makes him wonder if his sister is also in pain. They are now taking history lessons with Sir Kirsten, who is teaching them about the Empire's long history, including how families who loved one another ended up fighting and how enemies became friends. He then concludes with the lesson that there is more than meets the eye, which really sticks with Iwout and reminds him of how Ophelia constantly appears as if she isn't frightened of anything and can make all the things happen, but like their lesson, he can't help but wonder if she's just hiding her pain. Kirsten then permits the kids to have a snack break, and as they eat, Nayu expresses his amazement at the variety of delicacies that the palace can offer. Kirsten smiles proudly and explains that this is all due to Princess Ophelia's peaceful reign, adding that her management abilities are incredible, as if she is ahead of her time. He is really showing off his crush to her brother. While Nayu is stunned by the princess's greatness, Iwout sits silently and agrees that Ophelia is perfect. But recalling her sleeping face makes him feel as if she will soon disappear, which is shocking because Nayu said it out loud as if he read his mind. When Nayu is unable to elaborate, Iwout cuts him off and says that his sister constantly looks blankly into space. He then wonders if Ophelia has a friend that can help her cope with her pain, so he asks Kirsten if she does. This caught Kirsten off guard to the point that he unconsciously held the papers so slackly that they started flying. Nayu is preoccupied looking at the papers, but Iwout maintains his gaze locked on Kirsten and notices that his eyes get golden as he claims that Ophelia does have a friend, and his name is Isaac Belhaven. I am pretty sure Ophelia has never met Isaac in this life yet. Speaking of Isaac, the High Priest is frantically preventing him from leaving the temple. Isaac is a priest who is now dressed as a plague doctor, which is giving the High Priest headaches. Well, There's an easy way to get the high priest to quit pestering him, so Isaac announces his resignation from the priesthood without thinking. The high priest promptly instructs the temple people to remove Isaac's plague mask, revealing his gorgeous face, and tie his hands so they may speak with less violence. I have a feeling this grumpy brown-haired charming guy might be the main lead. Isaac announced that he now wants to be a healer, which annoys the high priest because he thinks he's unsuitable for the job. However, the high priest knows Isaac will leave the temple after his death, so he requests one final favor by asking him to visit the palace, as Princess Ophelia requested a priest. Isaac despises the palace, but after learning that the princess supports healers and the high priest's advice that, as a potential healer, he should represent and reassure the princess, Isaac can't say no to his dying wish, so he accepts it angrily and departs. The high priest then observes him from behind, noticing his immense divine power, which would make him the ideal next high priest. Anyway, back to Kirsten's class. They finish their test, and Kirsten questions Ewout about whether he truly grasped the term, "there's more to it than meets the eye," which the prince insists he did. But their talk takes a turn for the worse when Kirsten starts to question whether he really absorbed the meaning, so he brings up the rumor about Ophelia killing his mom. Kirsten wants Ewout to fully understand their exam and urges him to spend more time thinking about the rumors he tells him. But Ewout is uninterested because he has been in prison for some time and questions Kirsten about whether it is still part of the test. I believe Kirsten's questions are intended to open Ewout's mind to the possibility that Ophelia isn't responsible for the murder. While it is annoying to hear them debate about psychological issue, Nayu wishes that they would do it when he's not present. Poor kid always in the center of problems. He struggles to live at the palace and makes a strong effort not to interact with any suspected nobles, as described by his brother Now in his letter. He feels relieved that, despite his unpredictable temperament, Ewout is beginning to open up to him. Again, unpredictable, today Ewout ignores him, and Nayu thinks he's acting high since he has a princess sister, which is making him remember his brother Now, who raised him after their parents died and continues to work hard for him. Nayu is close to crying from missing Now so much, which Philip notices, so he purposely knocks into him to secretly put a chocolate in his pocket. The little kid is so surprised and wonders who put it there, but he eats it anyway, making his older brother Now smile. Nayu is sitting alone on a bench, reflecting on his life at the palace and how things have changed since Kirsten arrived. He observes that Kirsten persists in bothering the princess, and the princess has been actively avoiding him, leaving him with the constant feeling of always being on the edge. This poor child's daily worries! Nayu's peaceful moment is abruptly interrupted by Kirsten's arrival. Being an incredibly perceptive child, Nayu cannot afford to be upset with him because he can sense that Kirsten is also in pain. Then, his teacher smacks him on the head, telling him that based on his test results, it appears that he does not study at all. But Nayu argues that once he leaves the palace, he only needs a basic understanding of math for his daily life. Kirsten is a good teacher, as he still gives Nayu chocolates, which makes him happy, but looking at his teacher now surprises and frightens him, so he quickly runs away. He continues to run, hoping to leave the palace, until he bumps into the princess. They both drop to the ground, but he is so terrified that he tells the princess what he witnessed, claiming that Kirsten is possessed by demons since only demons can alter their eye color. Nayu understands that the princess must be uncomfortable listening to his stories, so he apologizes, which she accepts and teases him about focusing on his studies. Cuties. Nayu then receives his third chocolate today from Ophelia, as she asks him to leave now since Isaac has arrived and they have work to do. Ophelia gives Nayu such a warm smile that the child feels relieved, thinking that her plans might be going smoothly and wishes it will continue. If you only knew, Nayu. If you only knew. Isaac appears genuinely irritated as our girl here introduces herself and extends a warm welcome to the palace. Their matching outfits definitely screams main leads. Ophelia begins by explaining that his mission is to keep the children healthy, but her real objective is to have Isaac make her a paralyzing potion. She has no idea how she would be executed in this life, thus taking that potion will make her feel numb, so she intends to gain Isaac's trust throughout his stay. However, things don't go her way yet, as her smile makes this guy shudder. Since this is their first encounter, Isaac naturally demands to know how Ophelia knew his name. Ophelia quickly reacts, claiming that, as a princess, she ought to know everyone who enters the palace, which he thankfully bites. Observing Isaac's continued lack of trust brings up memories of how talkative and nagging he was to her in the past. They were friends in the past and Kirsten knew that? We need an answer from Mr. Mage. Isaac goes on to examine the two children, and both are smaller than normal children their age. But the moment he cracks his lovely smile and tells the kids to just eat well, rest, and play, they immediately get fond of him. Meanwhile, Ophelia snickers since her plan is working, so it's time for her to ask him to brew the potion. As soon as they exit the room for some private discussion, the maids begin gushing over how Ophelia must be secretly dating Isaac. Well, that's because rumors have circulated that the princess met her lover at the temple, who was actually just Arsad, but everyone now believes it's Isaac. Ewout interrupts the maid, saying it is wrong to discuss Ophelia's love life, and then asks Philip for his opinion because he is always around the princess. Philip casually suggests that Ophelia might be getting married soon, traumatizing the poor child. Just then, Kirsten comes and demands that Philip disclose where to find Ophelia and her reported lover. Well, the two are in the garden arguing, as Isaac believes Ophelia is simply sugarcoating her words when she says she wants a potion, since he believes she wants a potion to kill innocent people. Philip nonchalantly tells Kirsten where to find Ophelia, so Kirsten goes looking for her. However, when Kirsten observes Isaac's refusal to create the princess a potion because he mistook it for poison, he instantly steps up and scolds the priest for disrespecting Ophelia. As he tries to drag Ophelia away, he offers to whip up the potion instead. But he is taken aback when she icily and coldly takes her hand out of his and says he has no business being there as she never asked him to. They are not close in this life, so she fails to understand Kirsten's actions and can't deal with him any longer. That hurts. Kirsten's eyes glow golden again, and she has this theory that since he unexpectedly came to her in this life, he might have returned and remembered his past life. However, if the color shift is proof of return, her eyes should have changed as well. Therefore, her theory is not without flaws. Ophelia walks away as Kirsten asks if he is really someone she can't stand. So she locks eyes with him and in her most frigid display, implying that he is insignificant. After a few days, Philip mentions that Kirsten has been looking gloomy, but Ophelia just instructs him to make sure Kirsten does not approach her again. And guess who showed up? Kirsten is at her door, and her guard is long since gone, so she figures she might as well let him in to apologize. Kirsten expresses regret for his reaction and reveals that he has been compelled to do whatever it takes to support her and dedicate his life to her. This only means that he will not stop pursuing her, which he admits looking so nervous, and he even shares that Arsad scolded him for being immature. This is the first time Ophelia has seen him embarrassed, and just thinking about him being punished makes it even hilarious, so she can't help but giggle quietly. But this did not go unnoticed by Kirsten, and they end up squabbling like an old couple. Can we trust him? They look so adorable together, though. Ophelia smiles as she sees the timid Kirsten before her and realizes that she is only now beginning to know his true self. Still, she chooses to establish boundaries between them, explicitly reminding him that she is the princess and he is merely the prince's teacher. Once the princess has departed, Kirsten's menacing gaze and threatening tone reappear, and he calls out to Isaac to come out from the bush. I still don't know who to ship our girl to. That afternoon, among the servants, word spread that the two dashing men had gotten into a fight over their princess. A duel between a priest and a mage leads them to believe that Kirsten has the upper hand, and they all picture how the mage sent Isaac flying. Obviously, these maids ship our girl with her ex-husband. They are all unaware that No and Ophelia are listening to them gossip about fake rumors, which annoys her. So she considers giving them extra work, but for now, she decides to see the priest to finish their conversation. The maids' ability to freely express themselves is refreshing since it shows that they no longer regard Ophelia as the wicked princess. When she gets to the library, Ophelia thinks the gossip the maids are chattering about isn't just gossip, because Isaac's face is covered with scratches. This grumpy, lovely man just states that he and Kirsten did not fight earlier, and that Kirsten only reassured him that her need for a paralyzing potion was genuine. Kirsten also apologized. Well, by grabbing his shirt and shaking his hand, that's all. Because of this incident, Isaac begins to wonder why, if Ophelia is truly a wicked princess, there are those who care greatly about her, such as Kirsten, which leads him to initiate the discussion on the paralyzing potion. It makes me sad when she seems so delighted that Isaac is willing to listen to her explain that she wants an anesthetic that will make her feel nothing when she drinks it. She knows that only priests can perform research on it, and she also knows that some individuals wish to use the anesthetic as poison. So she takes his hand, looks him in the eyes, and assures him that as the Empire's princess, he can trust her. Isaac can tell she's genuine and wonders why she needs such an item, to which she honestly responds that she wants to be free from suffering. Isaac can't help but compare Ophelia's eyes to those of sick people begging God for mercy. And he realizes she is clearly in pain, so he eventually puts his trust in her and decides to help her. But he will need his own lab. Meanwhile, No has been listening to them in the corner, and it seems like he is not pleased with how things turned out. Well, the only one who understands the purpose of that potion is him, so... Anyway, the reason Isaac has so many scratches, in case you guys were wondering, is that he stole some rare herbs from the Imperial Garden. Another day, and it appears that Nayu and Philip are staying in the same quarter, but this little man is the responsible one, as he wakes Philip up, arranges his clothes, and even requests that he get breakfast from Amy before going to class. Meanwhile, Ophelia quickly prepares Isaac's lab and shows it to him. But instead of admiring the lab, this guy continues to search for someone, which confuses Ophelia. Isaac annoyingly states that he's looking for her sneaky bodyguard because every time Ophelia is with him, Philip causes a disturbance, as if he's attempting to kick him out. Isaac plans to confront Philip about it today and take the lead in kicking him out of his lab, which Ophelia finds funny and comments on Philip's exaggerated protectiveness of her, even though he shouldn't have to. Isaac is still annoyed with Philip, but having someone willing to go to such lengths to protect her is incredible. So he finds it confusing that Ophelia acts as if she has no right to be protected by anyone, when so many people are making efforts to keep her safe, causing the two of them to stand there in silence. It's nearly dusk when she walks out of the lab, and she's shocked to see Philip, who explains that he's come to accompany her back to her room. Philip has been taking her safety too serious lately, prompting Ophelia to remind him that he must take her life in the future, a reminder he has not forgotten. However, for the time being, he wants to keep her safe because, under her protection, he witnesses his little brother's happiness for the first time. She finally realizes why Philip is so concerned about her safety, because his brother cannot live this kind of life without her. But she is taken aback when Philip decides to return to his original body to express his gratitude for making him and Nayu share a room. Oh, how I miss Mr. Blue-haired gorgeous assassin. Excuse me, but that shirt is a bit tight on you, sir. He then bends down, takes her hand, and kisses it in an effort to express his gratitude using his real face. However, Ophelia finds it bothersome that his shirt is about to give out, so he swiftly gets up and walks away, hiding behind a bush to fix himself. Despite his composed appearance, my guy is actually a cutie. He's blushing so badly. Please, may he play the lead role? Can he be the main, please? I'm too soft for blushing guys. While assisting Iwout with his bath, Shauna, his devoted maid, comments on how he has been getting close to the princess recently, to which he swiftly responds that he is merely making peace until he becomes stronger. This maid just won't shut up and keeps reminding the poor baby that the princess killed his mother, forcing Iwout to yell back and restate their plan to exact revenge by killing her in a brutal way. This maid must have instilled in him the need to dispose of Ophelia in a cruel manner, otherwise he could have ended his sentence there. But Iwout's expression turns hesitant as he recalls the joy on his sister's face when he gave her flowers. The next day, Ophelia meets her grandfather, Duke Saccart, who explains that he will set her up with someone because, thanks to the rumors, he now knows his granddaughter is open to relationships. He suddenly becomes serious, explaining that their empire is divided into two factions, those who support her and those who want to make Prince Iwout the emperor. He shoots Ophelia a look and nags that this wouldn't happen if she didn't get Iwout out of the tower, which she dislikes and accuses him of treason, causing him to become enraged and call out her full name. He wants her to expand her influence through marriage, but despite his intimidating appearance, Ophelia finds it difficult to be upset with him, as her grandfather is the only one who has protected her from her father's abuse and represents the faction that supports her. Duke Saccart then hugs her, knowing that her mother passed on to her the attitude of having a cold face but a loving heart, so people misunderstand her. But he hopes she wins the hearts of others besides him. Oh, her grandpa is so sweet, or so I thought. Ophelia has a feeling the Duke is up to no good, but she finds out too late that Duke Saccart cuffs her leg and places the other one on the table. Her grandpa smiles as servants carry her with the table to meet the man she will have a blind date with. Ophelia expresses her disapproval that her date, whoever that may be, should not be Kirsten, who just so happens to be there and overhears her complaints. She turns around and gives him an irritated glance while he flashes her a sparkling smile. Meanwhile, Iwout and Nayu are practicing swordsmanship, but weak Nayu is drained, prompting Iwout to suggest that he return to his parents' house. Nayu informs him that he does not have parents and only has a brother, so he ends up remarking on how fortunate Iwout must have been to be born important and spoiled. Nayu goes on to say that there's a well-known painter near where he used to live who can make a portrait based solely on the customer's memory, but he dismisses it because he figures Iwout has multiple portraits of his mother. Iwout, who appears to be offended by this, claims that he does not have any pictures of his mother, but Nayu refuses to stop, causing him to tremble in rage. Nayu is smart, so I believe he's trying to provoke our little prince here, However, Iwout decides to just let it go and shows interest in the painter, who has a unique ability to recreate a portrait from memory. He mentions to Nayu that he would like to visit the painter, but Nayu is unsure if they can afford it, considering the potential cost, which saddens Iwout, as it seems unlikely they'll be able to obtain the desired portrait. Nayu, however, proposes getting some jewel decorations from the palace, which catches Iwout's attention. Little do they know, someone is eavesdropping on their conversation from above the tree. Back to our divorced parents, Ophelia reminds Kirsten once more that she prefers not to see his face frequently. However, he confesses that he can't reject Duke Sakar's proposal, which initially targeted Arsad as the eldest son. However, the stress and panic caused Arsad to fall ill, forcing him to step in as his brother's replacement. The blonde knight is such a baby girl. Imagine him on a date with our fierce girl. Ophelia then panics, thinking of Arsad being sick. But before she can voice her concern, Kirsten abruptly interrupts her, kneeling down and swiftly lifting her skirt, exposing her chained ankles. He skillfully and swiftly uses his magic to free her foot from the chain, leaving her amazed at his incredible abilities and ensuring her safety. Kirsten hopes to speak with her, but Ophelia immediately thanks him and clearly states that she has no intention of marrying him before saying goodbye and hurriedly leaving. He swiftly grabs her foot and begs her to join him for a cup of tea, but she declines because she needs to check something urgently, leaving him with no other option. As a result, he promptly vows to help her in her quest for the throne, making her head ache because it sounds like Kirsten is making Iwout, a mere child who doesn't even want to be an emperor right now, his enemy. Kirsten remains in his dramatic state as Ophelia urgently calls for Amy and Philip, inquiring the whereabouts of Iwout. She learns from them that Iwout is now practicing in the training hall due to Arsad's absence. Believing that no one is currently monitoring him, Ophelia orders them to check on him quickly, causing Kirsten to wonder about her intense worry for Iwout. Ophelia then expresses her concern about the possibility of Iwout being kidnapped. She points out that despite his royal and noble background, he lacks proper protection, which makes him vulnerable to such a threat. And though she knows that he's safe inside the palace, there remains a lingering concern that someone may use a deceptive tactic to apprehend him and deliver him into the hands of an individual who will take advantage of Iwout's prince title. Meanwhile, Iwout and Nayu have escaped the palace, and Nayu can't believe he was able to take enough jewels to help his brother. I knew this little sly kid was up to something, but aside from stealing, Nayu did not lie when he stated there is an excellent painter, so he leads Iwout to the painter's place. Now that Nayu and Iwout have arrived at the painter's tent, Nayu informs him that he will go in first. Iwout is wary, observing a group of unfamiliar individuals trailing behind them, but he brushes off his concerns and proceeds to follow Nayu inside. Once inside, an overwhelming darkness greets him, prompting him to repeatedly call out for Nayu. I can sense danger here. Out of nowhere, a burst of light emerges and someone greets his arrival, leading him to believe it's the painter. He provides an explanation for his presence, and the enigmatic painter requests that he close his eyes and reflect deeply on the person he longs for. In spite of his initial reluctance, he eventually closes his eyes and reminisces about his mother, picturing a younger version of himself joyfully running towards her. As he embraces her, he flinches at the sight of Ophelia's piercing stare on him, causing the painter to urge him to focus and recall memories of his mother, as her crystal ball is revealing the presence of another person. Despite his best efforts, he can only recall vague memories of his mother. Iwout ponders why he associates Ophelia's smile with memories of his mother, given that Ophelia was the one who imprisoned him in the tower during the Emperor's illness. Even though he's making every effort to dislike his sister, he definitely does like her. He then tries to stop thinking about her and considers taking revenge on her. But as he struggles to do so, a masked man with a sword appears, holding Nayu and attempting to capture him as well. The entire situation confuses him, prompting him to call for Nayu, who is now biting the arms of his abductor. When Nayu has the opportunity, he screams as he warns Iwout to quickly run away because the thugs are trying to kidnap him, and adds that he was taken captive as soon as he entered the tent, prompting the man to throw young Nayu to the ground. I have my doubts about Nayu there, but I'm glad he didn't sell Iwout to some criminals. Two guys enter the area and urge Iwout to follow them quietly, but Iwout quickly takes a piece of wood to protect himself instead. Despite his reluctance to defeat all of his opponents, he believes that no one can help him right now, and that has always been the case. However, he unconsciously remembers his sister in times of danger, prompting the painter to react as it reflects on her crystal ball. Iwout then prepares to attack, giving the impression that he's trying to fight them. Unexpectedly, a mysterious figure strikes the villain from behind, sending him to the ground. This sudden turn of events reveals the presence of Father Isaac, much to Iwout's gratitude for his timely arrival. The priest was actually the one sitting on the tree and overheard their plan, so he decided to follow them because they did not appear to be accompanied by guards. He rips his clothes and wraps them around his fingers, preparing for action. This guy isn't your typical innocent holy priest. A massive guy runs at him and punches him in the face, but Isaac remains standing. He immediately counters by delivering an uppercut to the guy's gut, sending him flying. While the kids are behind him, Isaac wipes his face and starts counting how many hits it will take to knock out all of the guys. Okay, so today he decides to be a daddy rather than a father. Meanwhile, Philip investigates where the prince has gone and discovers that Iwout has left the palace, so he assures Ophelia that he will bring him back. However, his cool reaction is cut short when Ophelia announces that she will go herself, leaving him confused while Kirsten can only pat him on the back. I never expected to see these two lads console each other. While on their way, Kirsten asks Ophelia if she's worried about Iwout, to which she replies that the disappearance of the Imperial Prince concerns everyone, including him. Kirsten just states that he is worried, but not for Iwout, but for her, because he knows her bodyguard is Na'u the assassin. Oh, he actually knows? He then questions why she has a killer on her side, and she gives Na'u a mana ring that allows him to change his appearance. Kirsten is about to tell her more about the mana stored in the ring when Philip screams that the prince's and Na'u's traces led to the tent, so he rushes in to check on them, only to discover Father Isaac, sitting coolly on the couch while the bandits are all unconscious. The mage painter is worried when she sees blood dripping from Isaac's face, but he assures her he's okay and expresses gratitude for her guarding the children while he fought. However, when Isaac expresses concern that the thugs stormed her tent, Philip does not hesitate to stab the painter, shocking the children. He guesses the thugs did not sneak in but were hidden, implying that the painter is one of them. However, Philip is taken aback as the painter's doll-like form ignites into flames, turning the entire tent dark again. The painter then shows Iwout the locket with the photo of his mother, as requested, and explains that it is time to pay the amount, which gives him shivers. Ophelia and Kirsten then enter the tent, but she finds it odd that no one is inside, believing that there must be a secret way somewhere. The Imperial Guards are examining the entire area, but Kirsten knows their efforts are futile because, as a mage, he can detect that the enemy has used a barrier. He intends to reveal this to Ophelia, expecting her to be impressed by his abilities, but before he can, Ophelia figures out that there must be a magical barrier. This is just her guess, so she asks him to confirm it, which he does, and he continues to be amazed by how incredible Ophelia is. At the same time, behind the barrier, the artist is using the sleeping Na'u, Philip, and Isaac as bait, saying she can stop them from waking up if Iwout doesn't give her the ring that Philip is wearing. Iwout recalls Philip once telling him that the princess gave it to him, so Iwout says that he has no authority over it, prompting this doll painter to begin making poor Iwout float and toss him in the air while commenting on his submissiveness to his greatest enemy, the princess. This mage does not appear human at all. She is so white, and her eyes are wicked as she smiles at Iwout, claiming that she had joy peeping inside his head earlier. And oh my goodness, the painter moves forward to dissect Iwout's head, so she opens a mouth as large as the scared boys. Her sharp teeth, her eyes, no, her entire face is hideous. But before she can carry out her intentions, a piercing noise reaches her ears. Outside, our girl is actually using her sword to break through the barrier, assisted by her ex-husband who is reducing the barrier strength. As soon as it cracks open, the painter chuckles at Ophelia, who sees Iwout unconscious in her hand with black goo all over his face. Ophelia is worried, prompting the painter to wonder why the two apparent enemies care for each other, and she explains that she implants a little bomb within Iwout's head. Given that the princess is with the Imperial Guards and the strongest mage with her, the painter decides to withdraw and tosses Iwout to her, declaring that they will meet again. The sun is nearly setting, and everyone is working to wrap things up while Ophelia still carries Iwout on her lap. Isaac stands in front of her, shocked that there are more powerful mages than Kirsten, but glad that they were able to save the prince, prompting Ophelia to call his name and thank him, which surprises our guy here. Someone is falling. The next day, Iwout joins Ophelia and assists her with stamping the documents before apologizing for leaving the palace without permission. She goes on to console him, telling him that it's perfectly natural because it's his first time playing with a child his age, and that this is the first incidence of misbehavior in his life, hinting that he had a wonderful time. She then lets him go, knowing that his teachers have assigned him a lot of homework. But as he is about to leave the room, Ophelia surprises him with the locket with his mother's photo. This unexpected action sends a rush of fear through him, causing his heart to race. He learns that Ophelia found the locket in the painter's tent and decided to keep it because she knew it was important to him. Little bro is overjoyed and thanks her for not throwing it away, but Ophelia simply shoos him away, claiming to be busy, but in reality, our girl is only trying not to show her soft side. As the door closes, Kirsten and Isaac appear unexpectedly behind her and comment on how she appears to struggle with showing kindness, which makes her so embarrassed. Ophelia shifts the conversation, asking Kirsten about Iwout's status. She discovers that although he appears distracted, his mana flow remains consistent. Meanwhile, Isaac assures her that when he investigates Iwout with his divine power, he gets the same results. This discovery makes her skeptical, especially since the painter claims to have hidden a bomb within Iwout's head. Kirsten is about to show off his wide knowledge of complex magic, but Ophelia beats him to the punch again, convinced that the painter used some sort of psychological magic. Iwout is unaffected, which leads her to suspect that he may have temporary auditory or visual hallucinations caused by psychological magic, while Kirsten is complaining about why she knows all about this. Later, she demands that Isaac bring her another magic book so she can continue her studies on the subject. But Isaac denies her plea, citing the need for her to rest. He swiftly examines her forehead, takes hold of her wrist, and informs her that she has a mild fever, which is making her ex-hubby here upset. To help her recover from her fatigue, Isaac offers to bring her some of the priest's special tea, while Kirsten offers to use his magic to rapidly relieve her exhaustion. But it merely bounces back to her, leaving the two men surprised that the magic does not work on her. Wow, she's resistant to magic? Meanwhile, Iwout falls asleep beneath a tree and wakes up as Nayu approaches, expressing gratitude that the prince defended him against the princess. Recalling the incident, Nayu apologizes for bringing up his past casually, when suddenly Iwout feels uneasy. Nayu discovers that Iwout has been hearing voices since his encounter with the painter. Thankfully, Father appears and assures Iwout that he will be well, and gives him the priest's special tea to relieve his exhaustion. Isaac then informs the prince that Ophelia will not consume her tea until he first gives it to him. This realization upsets Iwout and makes him cry because as he tries to detest her, he discovers he can't force himself to do it. At the same time, the evil painter gets notified that the magic spell she cast on Iwout has been broken. Well, that was quick. Philip emphasizes that despite the fact that Nayu unintentionally put the prince in danger, he begs Ophelia to be gracious enough to punish him gently because he's only a child. And to his frustration, he declares that he would accept the punishment instead. Then, Ophelia accidentally drops her hairbrush on the floor and instructs Philip to clean it. This surprises him because he considers it a lenient punishment, so he promises to make it spotless, but she shakes her head, confusing him. So he suggests sweeping her dressing room with the brush, or, if she prefers, cleaning the garden too. But still she shakes her head in disapproval. At last, he figures out the princess's plan, to have him use the brush to clean the entire palace. And that, guys, is how the painter incident concluded. So evil, princess, so evil. Ophelia, Iwout, and Nayu are now enjoying a tranquil and enjoyable afternoon tea in the garden, despite the unsettling events that have occurred. However, Ophelia can't help but feel a sense of curiosity when she recalls the painter taking an interest in the ring she had given Philip. Speaking of Philip, he is serious about cleaning the castle with a hairbrush, which causes the two naive boys to be anxious that he'll fall from the top of the tower. Meanwhile, Iwout worries about what Philip did and asks Ophelia to forgive him right away. Well, she had planned to let it go after he pretended to clean for a few minutes, but she can't believe the guy took it so seriously. Iwout swiftly rises and informs Ophelia that Philip is his friend, expressing concern for his safety. Ophelia smiles, realizing that Iwout has been more open with her, likely because she returned his mother's portrait to him. They walk hand in hand towards Philip to beg him to come down. As they stroll, she quietly feels giddy at the prospect that things are going well and she may be able to die peacefully. When she does this, I feel so sad and hurt. On the other hand, Isaac interrupts her so-called happy thoughts by reminding her that he needs to study her peculiar condition more. She declines and tries her best not to look at his face, claiming she has some urgent business with Philip. But Isaac insists they don't ignore the fact that the magic isn't working on her. While continue to avoid looking at him, she says that the children might get scared, so Isaac has no choice but to leave. Ophelia can't help but blush and realizes that she has been this way since Isaac became so kind to her. But she ignores her emotions, reasoning that it is because he protected Iwout and Nayu from the painter. However, Isaac chooses to walk back to her with an upset face, which only Iwout notices, knocking him off balance and causing the three of them to fall to the ground. Even in this situation, our cutie princess still chooses to avoid looking at him, which Isaac knows, but he reminds her that he's a priest and that he needs to touch her multiple times to monitor her health. He openly asks her not to avoid him, which makes her flush. And then he walks away awkwardly while Iwout worries if his sister is ill as he notices that her hand is hot. The ship is sailing, everyone! Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Kirsten makes the painter's associate to talk by all means and learns that the painter wanted the ring. Ex-hubby is that adorable but evil kind of man. Isaac Belhaven is regarded as the High Priest's best pupil, but Ophelia just recently noticed the subtle details of his appearance. His long lashes, flushed cheeks, smooth skin, and pleasant fragrance. Our girl doesn't realize she's been staring at him for a while until Isaac questions her, which makes her blush. After, she says she just wants to double-check his potion research report. She turns around to leave. Something Isaac definitely doesn't want her to do, and he ends up spilling 2 chemical flasks. This produces smoke that burns Ophelia's throat. But her surprise grows as Isaac quickly comes to her aid, swiftly guiding her to the floor and positioning himself protectively above her. He explains that the gas might be deadly, and as his heart races and his hands and face sweat out, he has no other option but to gently cover Ophelia's mouth and nose with his hand, which makes our girl blush like never before. They are now sitting, but neither of them dare to make eye contact, preventing them from seeing the extent of their blushes. She looks so vulnerable, small, and adorable here, so… Father, are you the male lead? Say amen if you are. In any case, Ophelia's head is a mess, and she wants to get away from Isaac to stop her heart from feeling strange and heavy. After she leaves his laboratory, Isaac also thinks something is wrong with him and chooses to go to the temple for some rest. However, look who ends up visiting Grandpa Santa, aka the High Priest here. Both Isaac, who wants to run away after seeing the princess, and Ophelia, who comes for a cup of tea. So meant to be. I'm still having a hard time choosing between him and Ooh. Ophelia and the High Priest are now on his office balcony talking about his troublemaker student Isaac. Ophelia remarks that Isaac is actually a huge help to her, though she secretly hopes that she'll stop feeling sick whenever she sees him. OMG, the hints! You're not feeling sick, princess. Those are butterflies. This greatly pleased the High Priest, who admits that he was worried that Isaac would poison the palace's food or set fire to the palace as a result of his terrible past, which is new knowledge for Ophelia because in all of her previous lifetimes, she never asked Isaac about his past, and Isaac never shared it. However, their chat is cut short when they hear a commotion from below, which looks to be a high-ranking noble, Count Ruel, who is desperate to see the High Priest. Ophelia becomes intrigued when the Count screams the name of Isaac, indicating that he wants to see the commoner priest if the High Priest is not present. So she glances down and sees the very guy who is loved by God and the High Priest, Isaac, glaring at the Count with a bored expression. While the princess and the High Priest are speaking in his office, 3 low-ranking priests come crying to the High Priest, pleading for him to do something about the Count because they can't take the Count's harassment anymore. Ophelia inquires about the Count's situation and finds out that he and his family have contracted a cold. Any priest could technically visit them and bestow divine healing powers upon them, But Count Rule is insistent on having the high priest treat his family instead, which goes against the temple's regulations, as it's customary for the high priest to only treat the imperial family. There is no longer any reason to stay because the temple is as chaotic as the palace, so Ophelia decides to return home and avoid learning about Isaac's background, while playfully advising the high priest to quit gossiping about others. Ophelia is about to get in her carriage when Count Rule decides to show his respect by praising her. Yet our girl simply walks inside without saying anything to him. Returning to the palace, she chooses to express her frustration by eating sweets alone at the castle's tower, fully aware that the Count's earlier gesture was his way of pressuring her to allow the high priest, Isaac, to heal his family. She is then surprised to see Isaac on the next turret, eating a burger to relieve his stress. But what surprises her even more is when this guy chooses to stand on the brink of the tower and unexpectedly leaps to her side. Ophelia nearly stumbles, but Isaac swiftly catches her, resulting in a situation where he's caging her against the wall. Oh my goodness, they look like they're going to kiss or something. Ophelia becomes enraged and begins punching Isaac, calling him stupid for performing such a dangerous act, prompting my boy to flash his most charming, adorable, and precious grin, which was actually his method of making her temporarily forget all of her troubles. I am positive he's the male lead, because if not, why is our girl blushing so much after discovering Isaac is trying to comfort her? I love them. Isaac surprisingly reveals that his father was a healer who had helped a nobleman before being reported to the temple and executed. He says this with a smile because he knows the high priest must have mentioned something about him earlier, while Ophelia looks at him and recalls how Isaac has always been kind in every lifetime. She does not want him to remain stuck in the palace, since Isaac always dreams about leaving the temple and the palace and going somewhere far away. So she asks him if he wants to heal more people than he can imagine. She is constantly helping those around her, so don't expect them to dislike you, Missy. Isaac appears confused, but Ophelia gestures to the distance and informs him that there is an old town with empty land due to a large fire that happened in the past, where she plans to build a massive medical institution. For short, a hospital. She then looks at Isaac, stating that part of her plan is to have him take charge of it, because she has decided to legalize healers and that she has already considered creating a system in which she will build a school for healers and expand the poor's access to healthcare, so that treatment for the sick is no longer a privilege reserved for nobles. She continues to ramble on about her plan, leading Isaac to wonder how long she's been planning this. To his surprise, Ophelia simply states that she's been planning it since the beginning. However, starting large is not ideal, so Ophelia asks Isaac to run a small health clinic for the time being, as dealing with a large number of people might aid in the development of a new anesthetic. Isaac appears concerned about her, as he knows that if he leaves and her plan succeeds, she'll face many noble enemies. Ophelia grins because she couldn't care less. The thought of the officials who would stand against what she advocates only makes her more resolute in her determination to silence them. Well, she is intelligent, so I am confident our girl will win it. And that day has come, as officials begin to grumble that they've already planned to build a banquet hall for nobility in the old town after demolishing every structure nearby. And they also start complaining about how the princess approved of legalizing the healers on her own. Our girl is enraged as she bangs the table. But because nobles have freedom of speech in this day and age, she orders them to speak one at a time, as she is ready to crush them one by one in a debate. And, of course, who comes out on top? Ophelia! Even though her brain is exhausted, she continues to challenge everybody who desires to express their views, which gets a clap from Count Rule, who claims that he is touched by how she cares for the people and that, as one of her people, he wants to benefit from her as well. This guy is persistent in asking her to have the high priest visit his mansion, so she takes the chance to clarify that the high priest is now available to treat those who are not members of the imperial family, which excites the count. But he is humiliated when Ophelia says that the high priest will prioritize the poor. His dignity must have been shattered. While Ophelia is finally able to recharge in her office, she is irritated to no end by Count Rule's repeated knocks, and she decides to resort to violence by attacking him with a book. However, when her door opens, she is shocked to see the arrogant Count bowing down and begging for help, which baffles Ophelia. She speculates that perhaps their family is suffering from a cold, so she offers to invite a priest with divine power to visit his place, However, things get rather unsettling when the Count reveals that his family's illness isn't just a cold, but a secret he couldn't bring himself to tell her. Maybe it's a plague? Meanwhile, Isaac's little health center is becoming overcrowded as more sick people arrive, but their facility has reached its capacity. Just then, Isaac receives word of a critical situation, so he hurriedly turns to examine the patient, but it appears that the trio priests have arrived to see him. The brown-haired priest remarks that he can't believe Isaac is working as a healer, and with a smug expression, says he wants to learn from him. You better! The people witnessing them are becoming concerned since it appears that the priests are opposed to the legalization of healers. The brown-haired priest continues with his arrogant attitude, asserting that the temple has authority over all forms of healing, and commenting that having patients packed into such a small space will make them sicker. Isaac is becoming increasingly irritated with this priest, so rather than engaging in a heated argument, he proceeds to retrieve a full basin of dirty water to hurl at them. However, Isaac is abruptly halted when the blonde priest smacks the brown-haired priest. Well, it seems the arrogant priest could use some practice with his communication skills. The blonde priest steps in and surprises Isaac by explaining that they have genuinely come to assist him. The priest smiles and admits that they were surprised by the whole healer thing, but they recognize that Isaac is doing the right thing. So even if he refuses their assistance, they plan to camp next to his facility to do volunteer work. Their discussion is stopped short when a baby starts wailing, so Isaac rushes to help the baby and says that more workers are better, so they should get to work as soon as possible, which the priests gladly accept. As they go about their work, one of the priests expresses his amazement at the thought that the treatment center was created by the alleged evil princess. He also emphasizes his excitement about the positive changes that are going to come to their empire once she becomes empress. Isaac pays close attention to the priest and comes to the realization that Ophelia's single decision made a positive impact on their empire, making it slightly better, and he is certain that it will become more beautiful over time. Despite this, Isaac cannot help but feel a tinge of sadness, knowing that Ophelia herself is going through pain. There is a noticeable shift in public perception regarding the princess, which I hope will give her even more drive to fight for her life. Speaking of our princess, she is currently searching for a reference that can provide her with signs of the awful disease that Count Ruel mentioned, but she fails to find anything, so she decides to visit the Count's mansion on her own. While walking down the corridor, she overhears kids having fun with their lesson with Arsad, who has been teaching them indoor classes rather than swordsmanship since Kirsten requested time off following the painter incident. Ophelia hasn't seen Kirsten since he informed her he was going to start research in the magic tower. Just then, Ophelia hears someone calling her, so she immediately turns around thinking it's Kirsten, but she smiles half-heartedly when she finds out it's Philip, who notices her disappointment. Someone is missing her ex. And can we appreciate Philip's new hairstyle and outfit? Both as Philip and as Nau, he exudes such charm. In any case, now that Philip has arrived, Ophelia wants him to join her at the Rural Manor, but she points out that she wants to detour and take the bridge path, because that is where the hospital she intends to build is located. She is now in the carriage, and from the bridge, she can see red wildflowers growing in the empty lot. But she also notices a figure with a recognizable silhouette on the field, whom she believes is Kirsten. However, she resolves to deal with it later when Philip informs her that they have arrived at Count Ruel's mansion. After guiding Ophelia out of the carriage, Philip questions her decision to travel alone, given that the residents of Rural Manor are infected, and it dawns on her that Philip is unaware of her magical immunity, wondering if she needs to explain the details to him. She then proceeds to inform him that she is a powerful person who never gets sick, while laughing, causing him to wonder if she's serious or just kidding. Count Ruel greets her from a distance, and she notices changes in his appearance as he seems more worn out than before. Since the symptoms appear after the sun goes down, Ophelia visits in the evening, and she wants to investigate the situation. But the Count simply informs her that her efforts will be futile without the High Priest. He dismissively turns away, suggesting that if she persists, there is nothing he can do, but he recommends leaving Philip outside the manor. Even though Philip is determined to stay by her side, he is taken aback when Ophelia herself urges that he obey the Count's orders. However, given how persistent this guy is, Ophelia feels compelled to explain it to him, urging him to just listen without reacting. She informs him that, despite studying countless books, she has not identified a case identical to the disease afflicting Rural Manor. But if the condition is caused by magic rather than illness, there could be some reason. Knowing that great mages, such as the painter, exist in the capital, and because she is resistant to magic, she has to enter the dangerous mansion alone, reminding him that he has to look after Nayu. Philip isn't resistant to magic, so Ophelia emphasizes that he should take care of himself if he does not want Nayu to be left alone, which surprises him and reminds her that he has extensive experience working for the Assassin's Guild and that it is his obligation to keep her safe. Unexpectedly, Count Rule starts to tremble, leaving Philip completely astonished as some nasty-looking goo emerges from his chest. The Count is almost losing it, but with his eerie voice, he urgently advises Philip to comply with Ophelia's instructions, emphasizing that he cannot come close to him. The foul odor repulses Ophelia, leading her to believe the disease is contagious, but she still follows Count Rule inside the manor, leaving the stunned Philip speechless. As she enters the manor, she notices a gloomy and creepy atmosphere, and seeing his family hanging from the ceiling makes her uneasy. What in the romance novel is going on here? This is horrifying! Count Rule then tells her that once the sun rises, they revert to their normal selves, unable to recall the events of the previous night. As they move further, a sluggish beast attacks them, but Count Rule strikes quickly with his cane, causing it to flee. Ophelia asks if he has ever considered whether this could be magic or a curse. Count Rule then explains that he was able to obtain the assistance of a mage in investigating the manor. However, his efforts were unsuccessful because the mage declared that the case belonged under the temple's authority. Whoever that mage was really said your mansion is haunted, so exorcists are a must, and I'm out. Count Rule and Ophelia are about to enter a room when the high priest Santa arrives. The Count's face lights up and he quickly bows, thanking Ophelia for contacting the high priest and wishing for their speedy recovery. Ophelia then makes reasons for the Count to leave the room, and once they're alone, she turns to the high priest, calling him Philip, and begins pinching him, scolding him for not listening to her. I knew No wouldn't leave our girl alone in this creepy mansion. However, he tries to deny his identity. She becomes enraged and pushes him for attempting to fool her by using the mana ring to disguise himself as the high priest. Her annoyance grows as she realizes that he isn't wearing the ring while holding his hands. Oh, so this is really the high priest? Out of nowhere, he whispers to her, instructing her not to look back, because behind her is an upside-down, creepy-looking giant smiling plush toy. So he urges her to remain perfectly still and hold onto his hand tightly, causing her to grow increasingly anxious. It's behind me, isn't it? The vibe is giving me chills. When he has the opportunity, he grabs Ophelia, kicks the sluggish creature out of their way, and they run for their life. However, as he rushes, he returns to his original look, which Ophelia had always recognized. Na'u in action, let's go! When they come to a halt in front of the gate, they are now both out of breath, and Ophelia begins to scold him for not obeying her instructions. Look at how cute she is as she attempts to grab his collar and Na'u just won't budge. He then explains that he actually hid the ring in his mouth because he knew she would toss it if she saw it on his finger. He reveals that the ring only needs to touch its user to work. Even his clothes change to match the person he wants to be, leaving Na'u amazed by the existence of this incredible artifact. Anyway, Na'u warns her that the gate is locked and they must remain there, causing her to flinch, and instructs him to climb over the gate. But Na'u insists on telling her that they cannot leave the manor. Feeling irritated, she glances at Na'u and notices a change in his face, as if he's lost his sanity, much like the people in the manor. Na'u grabs her hand and forces her to go inside the mansion, making Ophelia increasingly scared and doesn't know what to do, until suddenly she feels a comforting, familiar, warm light. Her vision is unclear, but she guesses the person extending his hand is Kirsten. But she dismisses the thought because Kirsten has red eyes, not gold. She starts wondering if this man is the same individual she spotted in the vacant lot in the old town. At that point, she begins to feel dizzy and passes out, and Kirsten kisses her forehead, carrying her while dragging Na'u. As soon as she wakes up, she finds herself in her room and panics that she has died. However, after seeing Philip, she finds relief in the fact that she has not been reborn. Ophelia now informs Philip that she must summon the High Priest to Rule Manor, which surprises him and reminds her of numerous instances of Count Rule's unpleasant behavior. However, she has no reason to be hesitant, especially because she witnesses the problem at the manor, believes it would be beneficial to have the present head of the Magic Tower as well, and recalls Kirsten. Suddenly, two boys rush toward her. Nayu grabs her, while Iwout warns him that Ophelia may still be exhausted. While she wonders what these two lads heard to react so strongly, she discovers that they heard she returned to the palace fully unconscious the other day. Arsad then enters, apologizes to her, explains that he was teaching the boys that day instead of Kirsten, and proceeds to tell them about her. Iwout then complains that she went to a risky place alone with Philip, and he strongly encourages her to make a vow to ensure her safety, which Nayu also did. She tries to talk to them, but the two boys keep urging her not to die, which makes her speechless. The sound of their voices echoes in her mind, and a vision of the mature Iwout from her past appears. His expression contorted with hate as he vows to never forgive her. Her emotions are so conflicted that she ends up passing out. After 3 days, she wakes up looking pretty, but she's still sick. Amy is closely monitoring her and has banned her from working, so she grabs Ophelia's paperwork before leaving the room to get some medical tea. However, this does not prevent our workaholic girl from sneaking out of the palace and visiting the Erhard mansion. The first person to greet Ophelia is Arsad, the golden retriever with golden hair, who is dressed simply for gardening, which is unusual. Grinning, he greets the princess, relieved that she's now feeling better. He explains that before his younger brother Kirsten received a count's title and became the next head of the magic tower, the Erhards had only a small land in a distant place, so dealing with dirt was nothing new to him. When he brings up Kirsten, Ophelia questions whether the man is actually in the magic tower, which confuses Arsad because, as far as he knows, she gave secret orders to Kirsten, which is why he is gone. This irritates Ophelia since she now confirms that Kirsten lied about doing research in the magic tower, leading her to believe he has something to do with what happened to the rural mansion. After Ophelia leaves and Arsad resumes his gardening, Kirsten appears and thanks him for not revealing his whereabouts to the princess. Arsad has no idea what Kirsten is up to, but he reminds him with a furious look, while they are brothers, he will stand with the princess, not for him, because that is what he vows to do as the Empire's knight. Instead of disagreeing, Kirsten grins at him and appreciates what he's just stated. Oh no, his eyes have turned completely golden, not his usual red eyes. Ophelia is now walking in the town, and just looking at the palace in the distance, she can already hear Amy panicking, but still, she decides to enter a carriage going to Rule's mansion. When she finally gets to the Rule manor, our princess walks like the baddie she is, intending to solve the Rule family's disturbing disease by having the high priest inspect the place personally. She has already dispatched a messenger bird to the high priest, so she decides to wait in the garden because everything appears to be peaceful at the mansion during the day. However, to her amazement, it is none other than Isaac who shows up. He declares that the health center is being cared for by others, so she shouldn't be concerned, and even jokes that she shouldn't force the old man Santa priest to travel because his knees are weak. However, it appears that not only Isaac is worried about her. Philip unexpectedly pulls up in a carriage, and the door swiftly swings open to reveal her worried young brother, the adorable Nayu, and a crying Amy. After explaining that the three were insistent on coming, Philip, who looks exhausted, turns his focus to Isaac, whom he discovers has unleashed an immense divine power that Ophelia can't sense and only he can detect. When they enter the mansion, Count Rule introduces his little grandson, Eugene, who he claims has the most severe symptoms, but it doesn't appear that way because this child is all sparkly and positive. Philip warns Ophelia to be cautious since it is the same kid who was in the room the night they went to the mansion. But Isaac approaches him and takes his hand without hesitation. After Isaac uses his divine power on the child begins to look around in awe, no longer seeing anything frightening. Isaac realizes Eugene is just pretending everything is fine, causing the little kid to cry and eventually expressing his frustration that Isaac needs to treat his family, prompting this man to give Eugene his warmest smile. Men who are good with kids are such a green flag. Following that, Isaac informs Ophelia that he will use his divine power to put up a shield in the room, inviting Iwout and Nayu to stay here while they investigate the estate. The grown-ups have left, leaving only the children inside the room, and Eugene can't stop raving about how beautiful the princess is. Nayu is different, but I fear this child will be a headache for our little kitten competing for Ophelia's attention. Anyway, Eugene is overjoyed that his family will feel well soon, and he mentions someone named Snowy, which confuses Nayu and leads him to believe he is talking about his stuffed toy. But Eugene states that Snowy is not a toy. Why is this giving me horror vibes? Meanwhile, Philip has gone to investigate the field and finds a small tombstone surrounded by red flowers, while Ophelia and Isaac examine Eugene's room. Isaac fearlessly unlocks the door, only to be startled by the sound of an animal screaming. He loses his balance and falls to the floor, but to his relief, the creature turns out to be a small white hamster. Oh, is this Snowy? And is it rabid? Isaac looks at the teeny-weeny cotton ball hamster and decides to let it go because it does not appear to be dangerous, and the hamster begins clinging to his finger and licking it. The horror vibe becomes all fluff again. Ophelia can't take her eyes off the small animal and begins to fall in love with how soft, squishy, and cute it is, which Isaac notices. But when he asks if she wants to pet it, she says no. See how she flushes and falls head over heels? I think we found our male lead. They're back in the room, and Isaac finally explains what he's discovered, claiming that the rules suffer from visual and auditory hallucinations. Well, probably better than a plague, right? However, this does not make sense with the Count, because if it was a spell, the mage who investigated his mansion should have seen it, prompting Isaac to explain that not all hallucinations are spells, and can sometimes be caused by plants. With the documents scattered over the floor, Isaac points to the paper with the red flower, which Philip had spotted earlier in the garden. Isaac then asks Eugene, who is playing with the cotton ball, if he has any other pets. He discovers that he had another hamster named Smokey who passed away a few months ago. This discovery brings him a sense of relief, as he has finally concluded his investigation and declared that the flower named Riel is the source of the hallucinations. A priest, healer, fist fighter, and now a detective. Sir, is there anything you cannot do? He then explains that the rare flower only blooms from the dead remains of what he refers to as unique animals, and that its pollen can cause hallucinations. But Count Rule is skeptical that such flowers could contaminate their huge mansion, so he starts yelling and requests that the high priest investigate. Isaac provides an explanation for him, stating that if the dead animal isn't forgotten once the Riel flowers bloom, like Eugene must have done for his deceased pet, the flower's effect will intensify. Still, the Count refuses to stop, so the princess steps in and suggests that they follow Isaac's idea for the time being. The first thing they should do is take a shower to remove any pollen from their bodies and then properly clean the mansion. They finish just as the sun begins to set, and before they leave, Isaac urges the Count to remove the Riel flowers and relocate Smokey's grave far away. However, he observes Eugene isn't cheerful, so he asks what's upsetting him and is surprised to learn that this small kid is blaming himself for missing his pet, which caused everyone to fall sick. Ophelia promptly gives the poor child a hug and consoles him, telling him that grieving someone's death is normal and that she too would like someone to visit her grave, which causes the child to cry. There she goes again with those depressive comments. Regardless, things escalate quickly as Eugene grabs the princess and proposes that she marry him when he matures into a dashing man, which Ophelia has no idea how to answer, while our little kitten at the back is traumatized. Well, word of that confession quickly spreads, and the leaders in the meeting can't stop bringing it up, leaving Ophelia completely exhausted. After her meeting, Isaac shows up, not to tease her, but to notify her that he stated that Riel flowers grew on dead unique animals. He actually meant monsters. That cute cotton ball Snowy is actually a monster too. But it is harmless, so he decided not to tell Eugene about it, which actually makes Ophelia giggle, since she now has an answer to why that little fluffy hamster is too cute. Everything is quiet in the palace today, and even Eugene has gone to play with the two kids. They intend to show the princess their abilities. He and Iwout are working on a dance routine, and Nayu is honoring his French horn technique, in the hopes that it will help alleviate some of her fatigue. Amy provides support for the children, and even Philip, who is watching over them, is having fun making bubbles while Shauna maintains her usual frown. However, as they are relaxing outside, our princess is so worn out from work that she has a nosebleed. Still, she does not want this to get in the way of her work, so she just orders the Imperial Knight Commander of Defense to continue his report. And she discovers that all seemed well in the capital, and Isaac's medical facility is being warmly accepted by the locals. However, they have a problem in the Old Town since they discovered that someone has been slaughtering wild animals in the area. Is that why she noticed a field of Riel flowers there? I think Kirsten is involved in this. Together with Isaac, Ophelia goes back to the bridge to survey the entire Old Town below. But to her confusion, the empty lot that was full of Riel flowers has vanished without a trace. Ophelia turns to the Imperial Knight to inquire if the guards in the town have relocated the flowers. But it appears that no one watches the area because no people reside there. She has seen the rare flower in the rural mansion in the Old Town, but the thing that intrigued her the most is that she has also seen the flowers in Kirsten's mansion. She returns to the palace, and the investigation reveals that Kirsten interviewed the mage painter's subordinate while claiming it was a directive from her. While she attempts to process what Kirsten has discovered, blood drops from her nose again, so she decides to rest for the day. But as she walks to her room, her mind keeps stressing over the fact that monsters are rampant. In the novel, the monster disturbance should take place 8 years from now, so if things are progressing faster than expected, she fears that her death will also be pushed. Isaac then visits the palace, and a maid assumes he wants to see the princess, prompting her to inform him that the princess is resting in the room. As he makes his way to the room, he can't help but be in awe of how swiftly the rule's illness was contained before it could spread across the capital. He should be proud of his ability to help them, but he can't bring himself to do so, likely due to the feeling of heartlessness he gets from hearing the cries of those he couldn't save. He knows what it's like to deal with a lot, so when he walks in and sees Ophelia laying on a bench in the middle of the room, he gets down on one knee, and then he finally says that he's been seeing how lonely she is and how empty her eyes are. He believes it has something to do with why she wants a paralyzing potion, so he asks if she needs someone who understands how she feels, and he offers to fill that role. However, Ophelia does not respond, and Isaac only sees her hand drop to her side, prompting him to approach her. But his eyes widen when he sees Ophelia. Sleeping? Dead? So peacefully. She is sleeping, right? Isaac frantically cries Ophelia's name, begging her to wake up, which causes this girl to giggle at her not-so-funny joke. But she stops when she realizes how terrified Isaac looks right now. His knees weaken when he realizes she is fine, but he eventually leaves the room upset. Girl, don't ever make that joke again! The monster surge is actually the highlight of this novel world and marks the key event of the villainess, Ophelia's death. She had Iwout join in on the monster subjugation, but only gave him a rusted dagger, which felt like a death sentence. She portrayed herself as a distraught princess who had no choice but to send her brother off to war, inspiring people to create an opera about it, which in turn led to the beloved imperial hymn. The song is called the Queen's Hymn, and it was also used to mock Ophelia at her funeral. But now, a potential idol group featuring Iwout, Nayu, and Eugene is joyfully performing in front of Ophelia. Our princess beams with joy as she enjoys their performance, causing her little kitty brother to blush with relief. Meanwhile, Eugene is making sure she knows that it was his brilliant idea to serenade her, while Nayu is feeling confused and wondering what a serenade even is. Cuties. Ophelia enjoys watching kids and can already see how, when they grow up, they will take her position. But before anything else, she must stop the monster surge. Even though Isaac is still upset with Ophelia, he still takes the time to prepare medicine just for her, just like today. She takes this chance to say sorry for making a death joke earlier and assures him she won't do it again. She really wants him to stop giving her the silent treatment because it hurts her feelings, and it makes him blushy. The Emperor is becoming weaker by the day, and even with the assistance of the High Priest, it appears that he will not live much longer, so he sends orders to meet his illegitimate son, Iwout. Ophelia chooses to be by Iwout's side, noticing his nervousness about meeting their father for the first time. When the little boy asks to hold her hand, she realizes that Iwout feels more resentment for their father than he does for her. When they arrive and the Emperor sees Ophelia holding Iwout, he becomes outraged and begins spitting insults, claiming that Iwout is being manipulated by a hideous fox, even calling him an impudent worm. The siblings are clearly blessed with their mother's genes, cause the Emperor is just not it. Like, ew! Anyway, the Emperor begins throwing objects at them, causing him to spew blood and Iwout to turn pale, prompting Ophelia to get him to leave the room. Ophelia then warns her father that Iwout is only 10 years old and should not have heard such terrible things simply because he cannot use him for his profit. But all she receives is a flying plate. And shortly after dawn, the Emperor passed away. But it looks like no one would mourn for an insignificant guy like him because even the High Priest who was supposed to lead the funeral makes an excuse not to go. So Isaac takes charge. During the rainy funeral, Isaac reveals that Iwout actually spoke to him, and Ophelia learns that her younger brother expected the Emperor to despise him. But he is surprised that she went through such verbal abuse by their father. It is totally normal for Ophelia, so she is surprised that Iwout had such a thought, which prompts Isaac to ask if she ever wonders what is on his mind, before giving her a back hug while stating that it is to protect her from the rain. Blushing, Ophelia and her adorable height, along with my guy making a move, are just everything. Following the Emperor's burial, an empty coffin is taken across the capital for everyone to say their goodbyes. But funny how the streets remain quiet and empty. This simply demonstrates how much the people despise his reign, leaving Ophelia to wonder how her funerals were in past lives, which she will never know. Ophelia has felt Isaac's attention on her since yesterday, and now she feels confused since his brow furrows. Suddenly, he covers her with his cape because the dripping awning is getting her clothes wet, and she doesn't realize it. She just smiles, mentioning how helpful he's been, making Isaac blush as he confesses that he's been trying to be there for her. Now, Ophelia's next headache will be her coronation as the Empire's Empress again. This implies extra work for her, so she wants to limit the ceremony to a minimum. But Duke Sicart is enraged, claiming that she should be celebrating for at least 3 months. Thankfully, Isaac appears to support our girl, noting that Ophelia's health is more important than the so-called magnificent coronation. Ophelia is having a wonderful time in the garden, and she can't help but giggle at how sweetly Isaac is being protective of her, trying his best to shield her from the bright sunshine. He asks her once more if she has finally understood why he keeps bringing her medicinal tea and why he's scolding her, leading our puzzled girl to respond that it's simply because he is a priest who treats everyone with kindness. The poor boy sits in the corner, all curled up in frustration, feeling like his feelings aren't reaching her. She gently reminds him that she'll soon be the Empress, busy with so much on her plate. He understands that, and he also knows that she is someone who can handle the pressure. With a smile, she says there are things she can't share with him, which breaks his heart because it feels like she's creating a distance between them. To his surprise, she places a cloth above them and shares that he brings peace to her chaotic mind. He leans his face toward her hand and pleads with her to keep doing things like this until she can understand what's truly on his mind, which makes our girl see him as a cute, whimpering puppy. Just when Ophelia is feeling at peace, Kirsten, who's sitting on the wall, has to make an appearance. She asks Isaac to stay and keep the cloth on his head, and off she goes, being carried by Kirsten to the sky with crows all around them. Kirsten brings her to a subspace that reduces the effects of mana depletion in his body. He then reveals that his new golden eyes indicate that his memories have returned, before admitting that he is always the one who brings her back to life. Ophelia looks so frightened and screams for him to stop the regression, but it appears that this is impossible. The revival magic he used is the reason Ophelia is resistant to magic and divine power. Therefore, no matter what he tries, he will be unable to help her, and she will continue to regress forever. What's worse is that no matter how hard Ophelia tries to change the future, Prince Iwout will always hate and dispose of her, as this is the fixed point in the revival magic that will ultimately bring her back to life. Everyone is merely puppets acting out a predetermined story, and Ophelia can't believe Kirsten spent all of his mana on this magic when he was so innocent. Kirsten apologizes for what his past self has done, and he also despises his old self for failing to commit treason and then acting like a god just because he had so much mana, yet miscalculated everything. In his rage, the subspace begins to shatter, and she realizes that she cannot die merely because of falling rocks, especially after all her preparations to die peacefully. Kirsten expresses how he feels useless because his mana has run out, prompting Ophelia to take his hand and suggests that he start researching how to reverse the magic. But he trembles, fearing that if he fails, he will not be able to regain his memories in the next life. He grabs her and starts behaving crazy, telling her that they should simply stay in the subspace together, giving her the chills, but thankfully someone strikes him in the head so hard that he passes out. It's the painter from before, and because the two mages appear to be close, Ophelia concludes that they're also the ones planting the Riel flowers throughout the old town, which leads her to figure out her identity. The painter then throws her out of the subspace, prompting her to shout her name, Didier, but to her amazement, she lands softly on the ground. An enemy? An ally? Didier is stunned that Ophelia realizes who she is when Kirsten finally awakens, so she tells him that the Riel flowers are driving him insane, so he should take it slowly. Didier also informs him that the princess is now his enemy, but Kirsten refuses to give up Ophelia before crying about how much he loves the princess. That's obsession, my guy! The coronation is finally happening, and our girl looks distressed because the celebration is everything but simple, thanks to her grandfather's efforts and Amy's super extra makeover. Still, she chooses to let it go after seeing these little kids staring at her with admiration, and she eventually smiles. The celebration lasted a week, but Ophelia made sure to limit the noble visits and only treated the citizens generously, which earned her their approval. Prince Iwout and Empress Ophelia are making public appearances together, and as everyone notices the bond between the siblings, the doubts about Ophelia's involvement in Iwout's mother's death are beginning to decline. Now they all celebrate her as their lovely new empress. The siblings return to the palace, and Iwout appears to be enjoying the festivities, prompting Ophelia to quip that he will become an emperor far more beloved than her. Before Iwout can say anything, Ophelia encourages him to follow Shauna back to his room, taunting that no one likes a tiny emperor. If she hadn't known about the revival magic, Ophelia would have celebrated to her heart's content, but now she just hopes Isaac can make the paralyzing potion as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Kirsten, who watches the siblings from above, uses some Riel flowers to refill his mana. After that, he secretly uses his power against Iwout, but a bird is hit instead, leaving Ophelia in shock, and when she searches for the attacker, she discovers that it is Kirsten. She bursts into laughter, realizing that Kirsten can't harm Iwout since the revival magic has designated him as her killer, which is now keeping him safe and driving Kirsten into a rage. At the temple, the high priest observes that Isaac has been spending a lot of time in the scriptorium lately. This piques his curiosity about whether something is troubling Isaac, but he quickly denies any issues. When the high priest notices Isaac shaking, he suspects that Isaac might be hiding something, possibly his feelings for Her Majesty, which causes Isaac to flinch. At that moment, Isaac feels a rush of warmth and wonders if he is not supposed to feel love, affection, and respect. This causes the high priest to laugh silently and quickly propose that Isaac should acquire a fitting title before moving forward, which leaves Isaac confused. The captain of the Ophelia ship is friends with the gods, so for those who aren't Isaac bias, I think we're in a disadvantage. This prompts the high priest to elaborate further, suggesting that Isaac take on the role of the next high priest, but Isaac firmly declines. Meanwhile, at the palace, Amy observes Ophelia as she sleeps, realizing that she must be utterly exhausted. Concerned for her well-being, Amy tells Philip not to wake Ophelia as she suffers from severe insomnia. This is actually the first time Ophelia has managed to sleep that week, and Amy worries that she may struggle to fall back asleep if disturbed. Philip then suggests that Ophelia will feel better if he makes her more comfortable, and casually asks Amy to get him some wet towels. But before Amy leaves the room, she reminds him that he shouldn't desire things he doesn't deserve since he's just a mere servant, and Ophelia is the empress. Afterwards, Philip then speaks to the sleeping Ophelia, confessing that he frequently dreams about her. In such dreams, he sees himself killing her as they had agreed, prompting him to wonder what kind of nightmares she must be experiencing, given that she is the source of his own nightmares. Ophelia wakes up, wondering if she's inside her dream. Once she realizes she's really dreaming, she feels glad that she does not have to go to work and that no one is coming to wake her. As she wanders around, she hears a familiar voice calling her, and when she turns, she is surprised to see her brother Iwout in his chibi form. So cute! Sitara is also there, smiling warmly at her, which leads Ophelia to believe she is truly in a dream. She cries out to them, urging that they should all stay together and treat each other well. At that moment, Ophelia flinches, surprised by the damp towel Philip places on her, which jolts her out of her dream. He then confesses that he hates her, claiming that she shouldn't have made him fall for her, yet he smiles sadly, expressing that he's just glad to be by her side. Oh my gosh, a confession! A sad confession. However, our girl only hears him babbling, and she's just annoyed that he woke her from her lovely sleep. So she drifts back into her dream, where a cute, chubby Nayu is thrilled to see her. They talk about her home, and she pictures this cozy wooden cabin in the woods, where animals roam free and canaries sing their sweet tunes. Nayu wishes to visit her home. And look at our girl looking so excited, given that she will see her dream house too. But on their way, Kirsten blocks them, turning her sweet dream into a total nightmare. Even in her dreams, Kirsten is totally getting in the way of her happiness. Like, seriously. Duke Sicart is busy preparing for the Empress's upcoming ball, which Ophelia initially opposes. But after Gramps assures her that he will cover all of the expenses, she snickers and lets him be. Following that, she devotes all of her time to planning for the monster crisis coming from the north until the day of the ball. There's this ancient tradition in the Empire where whoever wears the same accessory as the Empress at the first ball after her coronation gets to have the honor of the first dance with her. Apparently, The first Empress met her husband this way, and Amy is totally hoping Duke Saccard is on the lookout for a super hot guy to hand over the jewel. But oh dear, the list of top contenders that the Duke believes can help Ophelia politically looks like a collection of failed experiments. Is Gramps even serious? Thankfully, Iwout appears and declares that he will be the Empress's official partner. He believes his position as a prince will be useful, but Saccard dislikes our little boy since he believes Iwout despises Ophelia because of accusations that she murdered his mother. Iwout simply scoffs and talks back to him, reminding Saccard of Ophelia. So when Iwout firmly informs him that they should let Ophelia decide whether he is truly a devoted brother or not, Saccard relents and hands over the jewel that matches Ophelia's. Iwout happily holds the shiny blue jewel, but when Isaac appears, he hurriedly hides it because Saccard says that it must remain a secret. As Isaac leads Iwout back to his room, Iwout is astounded that Isaac never asked him any questions, although he clearly saw the jewel. This makes him realize that the reason Ophelia feels comfortable around him is because he treats everyone with kindness. With that in mind, Iwout asks Isaac what Ophelia means to him, causing him to smile and reply that Ophelia is special to him, even if his feelings aren't returned. Okay, but Father, please fix that robe! We wish to avoid any sin. Amen! It's the day of the ball, and everyone is sparkling in blue gems. It seems the Empress's blue gemstone got leaked, and even little Eugene is dressed in a robe covered in them, going full Super Saiyan with excitement. Meanwhile, Isaac takes Iwout to the ball, but our little guy seems a bit distracted after spotting a scratch on his jewel from wearing his outfit to practice this morning. When Isaac opens the huge door, he finds Ophelia in the middle, looking ethereal and even giving him a wink before looking away, leaving this love-struck guy completely dazed. Ophelia lifts the jewel she holds, illuminating the entire room and leading Eugene to collapse in defeat, as that gemstone is extremely rare, known as the Hidden Angel. Iwout looks so happy and is about to show his gemstone too when suddenly it breaks in two, prompting Isaac to quickly catch it and infuse divine power into it to make it glow even stronger. Isaac gently encourages Iwout not to cry and gives him a little push, reminding him that his sister is waiting for him. Getting on her brother's good side? Guys, the search is over. I think we found our male lead. Ophelia is having a great time dancing with her nervous little brother when her gaze meets Isaac's, who's now blushing in the corner. Philip and Amy are also watching the siblings merrily dance, but Philip's keen eye detects tension between Ophelia and Isaac even when they aren't dancing together, which kinda bums him out. The party continues, and Isaac chooses to leave for the night, but it appears that fate is working to bring him and Ophelia together, for Our Lady is above him attempting to escape her own party. She smiles as she leaps from the balcony, and he effortlessly catches her. He then offers to carry her on his back because she does not have any shoes on, and she cutely puts her arms around him. They discuss the upcoming hunting tournament, and she hesitantly asks if he'll be there, causing him to just smile, prompting her to gently tug his hair. I love seeing her just being herself and happy. It's been a month since Ophelia became Empress, and now she looks like a baddie on a cliff overlooking the hunting event. Philip arrives after completing a duty assigned by Ophelia, but before addressing it, she approaches him and wonders why he never makes eye contact with her. She's observed him avoiding her since the ball, but since he's not saying anything, she decides to simply discuss the job at hand. Philip shows her the sphere of will that the Emperor has left behind for the head maid, which has a recording of his will stating that anyone other than Iwout is a fake ruler. Oops! Ophelia accidentally steps on the sphere, catching Philip off guard and making him wonder why her father is overly harsh on her when he doesn't seem to like Iwout either. Simply put, Ophelia resembles her mother, who was considerably superior to the Emperor and shattered his ego. Huh? That's it? He's just insecure? Ophelia mumbles that it would have been better if she had never existed before dismissing it as a joke, but not for Philip. He wonders whether this is why she wants him to assassinate her without pain, and he urges her to reconsider, noting that there will undoubtedly be wonderful days, such as when she's with Isaac. No, I'm stuck between him and Isaac, but it appears like he won't fight for her as long as she's happy, huh? He bows and begs her not to give up on life, but all she says is that he will never understand her. In the forest, Didier, now transformed into a crow, is eager to find out if Kirsten has worked out the revival magic. Didier discovers that Kirsten failed in his latest attempt to kill Prince Iwout, but he remains confident that his poisoned arrow, which kills on contact, will be effective this time. Kirsten then chooses to stand high on a tree, watching Iwout and his knights approach, and he resolves to take care of the knights who are following the prince first. Everyone is focused on the deer they are pursuing and is unaware of the impending danger, so Kirsten takes down each knight, leaving poor Iwout alone. Afterward, Kirsten stands before Iwout, aiming his arrow at Iwout's right eye, and just as Kirsten is about to launch it, a bolt of lightning strikes the arrow from above, causing it to drop to the ground and leading Kirsten to react furiously. Times like this make me thankful for revival magic. Iwout feels a shiver of fear, and he wonders if the person before him is an assassin pretending to be his teacher, Kirsten. However, Kirsten now appears indifferent and is focused solely on whether Iwout or Ophelia dies as the poisoned arrows strike at Iwout. However, the arrows fail to harm Iwout because a whirl of wind surges around him, deflecting them with a mysterious force, causing a reaction from Kirsten. Meanwhile, Ophelia observes the forest from a distance, with a confident smirk on her face. My girl totally saw this coming! Iwout is running for his life, chased by a crow. He decides it's best to shake off the bird and spot some bushes to hide in. Just in time, Philip appears, positioning himself to catch the crow successfully before declaring that Ophelia will not leave Prince Iwout alone. Iwout feels relieved and glad that Ophelia has sent Philip to protect him. Suddenly, Kirsten appears, looking angrier than ever, while Philip prepares for an attack, tossing the bird to Iwout. In a panic, Iwout urges Philip to escape with him, but the two men engage in an intense fight. Kirsten demonstrates his superior strength, leaving Philip struggling to keep up. As Kirsten grips Philip by the neck and prepares to deliver a powerful blow, a knight with a calm yet formidable presence interrupts them, upsetting Kirsten, who begins to wonder about the identity of this mysterious knight. Father Isaac then removes his helmet, revealing his immense radiating blue power, prompting Didier to remind Kirsten that it will be difficult for him to cope without any magic left. However, Kirsten is confident that magic is a science of application, and he believes that by taking advantage of Isaac's divine power, he can effectively defeat the regression magic. Therefore, he can kill the prince right there and then. However, Isaac firmly declares that it is not allowed because it will go against Ophelia's orders. Suddenly, Kirsten turns blue, and it surprises him that he cannot breathe. At that moment, Isaac declares that Ophelia is already aware of Kirsten's impending arrival and has made plans to capture him using her careful calculation and wisdom, which causes Kirsten to fall to the ground. The genius behind this plot reveals herself, and she is relieved to have finally captured the person who has caused her so much misery, while that person simply looks at her affectionately and remarks how lovely she is. Ophelia was once in love with Kirsten, but now all she wants to do is slap him repeatedly till her wrist hurts. Her soul may be tattered and worn out from this constant cycle, but she does not want him to keep control of it. So even if he tries to save her by killing Iwout, she intends to stop him in each lifetime. Oh, it's so bittersweet that Iwout has become so important to her that she can't imagine sacrificing him for her own sake. Ophelia has made up her mind about the punishment she will give to Kirsten, and this guy playfully gestures as if to ask if she will cut off his head. Could he please stop being so adorable? My weak heart can't. Our girl believes that killing him wouldn't really solve anything, as they'll just meet again in the next life. So she has a plan to take him to an underground prison, where he'll have only paper and pen. He will eat only black bread and drink sewage water for the rest of his life, researching how to put a stop to the revival magic. She will ensure that he memorizes his research so that when he passes away, he can pass it down to the next him, carrying on the research for generations. The revival magic cannot be broken, right? Ophelia beams and adds that this means he'll be her lab rat forever. She will confine him as soon as she regresses, and because his memories do not return promptly after regression, it will be excruciating for him to be imprisoned and not know what he did. She will also transfer Isaac's research lab above the prison, which will undoubtedly hurt Kirsten's pride for the rest of his life. At the same time, Iwout is enjoying a meal with Nayu and Eugene. But his thoughts are still lingering on the current situation, as he senses that there's something his sister isn't sharing with him. Out of the blue, Nayu mentions that there's a bird perched on Iwout's shoulder, but it seems like only he can see it. This makes the crow, aka Didier, smile mischievously, realizing that Nayu has a knack for magic. I didn't see that coming! The sun is just about to set, and little Nayu chooses to sit quietly behind the tent, rereading the last letter his brother sent him. Eugene arrives with a playful tease, but then shifts to a serious tone, sharing that he understands how painful it can be to drift apart from someone. This makes Nayu feel concerned, wondering if something has happened to him. But to Nayu's disappointment, Eugene is actually just sharing his one-sided love for the Empress and how he plans to move on. Nayu escapes and hides in the forest, where he unexpectedly sees Isaac kneeling in front of Ophelia. No, he's not confessing or anything. He's just really concerned about her. Since divine power and magic don't work on her, her wrist injury isn't healing as quickly as it should. He then offers to help her find Didier, but she declines, saying it's a personal matter. This makes him a bit pouty, as he feels like she doesn't want him to be involved with her and Kirsten. Isaac's reaction surprised Ophelia, because he looks to be jealous of Kirsten, so she chooses to open her heart to him, telling him that she has had nightmares for many years, but has recently been able to sleep because he always appears at the end of her dreams. At last, our queen has made her choice! I think Isaac is a wonderful match for her. He really brings a sense of calm to her storms. With Nayu's relief that the wary Empress finally found solace in Isaac, he goes back to the barracks, only to discover Philip seriously ill. The mana in Philip's ring is detected by Didier, who is lurking about Iwout. He takes control over Iwout's body and smashes the ring, causing Philip to revert to his original form, now, which shocks Nayu. Ophelia and Isaac come to the barracks just in time to see the ring's mana travel to Kirsten's tent, indicating that he must have absorbed it, but they are unable to enter due to the strong wind. Ophelia asks Isaac to take the unconscious now to a safer location when everyone freezes, except for her. Didier appears and tells Ophelia that she will take care of Isaac right away, but our girl remains calm because she believes Isaac is stronger than he appears. But what really gets her attention is seeing her little brother perched on Didier's shoulder like a Zoom Zoom toy. Given that the revival magic would save Iwout from death, Ophelia convinces herself that Didier is merely teasing her. Didier then introduces herself as the current head of the magic tower and mentions that since she broke Ophelia's transformation ring, she will lend a hand just this once. Didier returns Iwout, ends the frozen time, and sends Kirsten to a faraway place, which makes Ophelia wonder whether she's facing an enemy or a friend. That evening, Ophelia stops by to see the sleeping now, who appears to be hiding his internal injuries, which explains why he was burning earlier. She wants to put a damp towel on him, but she can't since it appears that she's still traumatized. She chooses to go for some fresh air along the lake, where Didier is with her new face. Like, literally, she's just rolling around with her head. What a creep! Now awakens and quickly searches for the Empress, whom he finds beside the lake, but with Isaac. The two merely converse about business, which bores Didier, whose head is lying in the lake, so she gives Isaac a gentle push, controlling his body to move closer to Ophelia. Thank you? Isaac is now hugging Ophelia, prompting him to apologize greatly because he knows she despises pain more than anything else, which confuses her. He has seen that she constantly takes her time picking up a knife or fork, and that whenever she visits the hospital, she avoids blood or bandages. To be loved is to be seen. I love him for her. However, Didier considers the two to be boring, so she tries to control Nao's body as well, forcing him to hug Ophelia. The three of them hang out like that for an hour, all because of a certain head floating in the lake. They have returned to the palace, and Nayu appears to be avoiding his older brother, but thankfully, Iwout is around to accompany him. Ophelia enters her room, and oh my! Didier in her manly form flexing those abs is lying in her bed, which surprises our girl greatly. Is she a he or is he a she? Huh? Anyway, Didier gets serious and explains that she let Kirsten escape the hunting ground to protect everyone. Now that the ring has given Kirsten some of his mana, there could be a bloodbath. So Didier suggests Ophelia just behave and be Kirsten's plaything. I can't really read her. She's an enemy, right? DDA also mentions that Kirsten is gradually losing his soul, which is why he's experiencing dizziness and paranoia, and that his mana depletion isn't something real flowers can help restore. DDA then shares with Ophelia that the North is home to the magical barrier, and is also where the monsters reside. This reminds her of the adorable hamster monster she met before, so DDA decides to show her that monsters can be all kinds of shapes and sizes, just like this big, rather hideous one right in front of her. Ophelia realizes that DDA is showing her all of this because the northern barrier is weakening, which is leading to the monster crisis. As the Tower Master, she must be planning to address it. Ophelia intends to travel to the north with Isaac, and now, when DDA informs her that Kirsten will also be there, and that now that his mana has been partially recovered, he may commit an unthinkable act. Today, Ophelia playfully teases Iwout about his hair being dirty, which makes the little kitty quite upset. Are you even siblings if you don't rage bait them, right? Cute. Until the revival magic makes Iwout hate her, she genuinely wants to be his family. So even if Iwout continues to ramble about how he washes 3 times a day, all she sees is his adorableness. Suddenly, Nayu runs into Iwout while Now is chasing after him. These brothers are fighting, which I understand, given that little Nayu felt betrayed after Now lied to him, and now he's going to travel north. The other siblings, on the other hand, have their mouths open after witnessing the drama. But I adore how close they appear as they hug each other. Ophelia spots Nayu getting a bag ready for his escape plan and wraps her arms around him from behind, teasingly telling him that he won't make it since his pickpocketing skills have gotten a bit rusty. This pushes the little boy to demonstrate his skills and take the scroll from her pocket, but it turns out that the document is actually meant for him. He reads it and is surprised to find that it's an adoption request form. This little boy feels even more heartbroken when Ophelia mentions that this adoption is better, as it seems unlikely for him to reconcile with Now. Just then, Didier appears behind her, happily stating that Nayu can become a mage if he wants to. Didier can assure Ophelia that Nayu has a special talent for magic, but our girl refuses. While becoming a mage is indeed a respectable path, Nayu would be confined to the tower due to confidentiality rules, meaning he would spend his life as a servant there. Nayu believes it's for the best since Now often leaves him alone, which leads Ophelia to finish what she wanted to say before Didier interrupted. Now mentioned that Nayu could be adopted by a noble couple if he wanted, but he swears to kidnap him and escape because he is his precious little brother. Nayu comes to understand that his brother will definitely track him down, whether he gets adopted or joins the magic tower. In a heartwarming moment, the brothers finally make amends just before Now departs for the north with the Empress. The gang has made it to the north and decided to take a little break in a village. Just as they were getting ready to continue the trip toward the barrier, which can be seen glowing in the mountains, a skeleton butterfly monster appears out of nowhere. The villager shouts that these creatures have been appearing recently, but they've never ventured this far down before. The monster is holding an old man, which leads Ophelia to grab some nearby chicken eggs. She throws one at Isaac, who then tosses it to the monster, making it drop the old man and flee. Well, Isaac sanctified the egg and used it like holy water, which is all thanks to our Empress's quick thinking. They choose to stay in the village to come up with a plan, and Now finds it odd that the usually scattered monsters are only wandering near the barrier. This leads Ophelia to wonder if maybe Kirsten doesn't want them to fix the barrier. Now speculates if Kirsten might be planning to kidnap her during all the chaos, but Ophelia has come up with an even better idea about what Kirsten will do. Since the revival magic only works in a controlled setting, Kirsten is creating such mayhem that the magic will be overwhelmed, giving him the opportunity to assassinate the prince. It is highly probable that he will break the magical barrier and use the monsters to wipe out the Empire. Meanwhile, in the palace, Shauna, the ever-creepy maid, hands Iwout the Sphere of Will, revealing that the Emperor wants him to claim the throne. It looks like the Emperor also gave her a copy, and right now she's trying to convince Iwout that Ophelia is a traitor. This causes Iwout to have a severe headache, and he can't shake the feeling that there are 2 sides to him, one that loves his sister and another that hates her. He can't listen to Shauna any longer, so he decides to run away. However, he then meets a rather suspicious maid who tells him that Ophelia murdered his mom and asks him if he really finds it in his heart to forgive her. Iwout is a bright boy, and much as he was imprisoned in the tower owing to false allegations that he had people working for him, He believes Ophelia is similarly being wrongly accused of something she cannot prove. The maid then looks directly into Iwout's eyes, telling him not to lie about believing Ophelia. But, oh, little bro truly believes in his sister. This drives the maid to ultimately expose himself as Kirsten, who refuses to believe Iwout's words and accuses him of lying. Kirsten then reveals Ophelia's secret, which is that she is constantly regressing and that he, Iwout, is always the one who murders her. Kirsten teleports and brings Iwout along to a spot close to where Ophelia is. Finally, Iwout discovers the reason behind the existence of a version of himself that dislikes his sister. It's vital for the revival magic to work. Iwout looks so shocked because he now believes that Ophelia must have detested him for being the one who ended her in all her lifetimes. Upon hearing this, Kirsten comes up with a wild idea for the young boy, suggesting that if he truly feels sorry for his actions, he should consider making a sacrifice for his sister. Blaming a kid for something you did? Crazy! Kirsten is totally retracting that because, even if Iwout isn't on his side, he's still gonna go all out for Ophelia. So yeah, he's definitely still gonna take out Iwout, no doubt. Kirsten understands that although Ophelia was disliked, she had a deep love for the Empire and its people. However, he believes she will comprehend his decision, as it is made solely to help her escape the revival magic. Kirsten then takes Iwout to the top of the mountain, close by the barrier, where mana is low, weakening magic and slowing its activation. This implies that Ophelia's revival magic cannot protect Iwout right now. But just as he's about to drop him, Iwout slaps his hand away. My boy gives Kirsten the middle finger because he plans to fall from this height, but he swears by his imperial bloodline that he will do so without Kirsten pushing him. When Iwout was finally free from the tower, he felt like he could accomplish anything, being a prince and the only son of the emperor. However, that illusion was quickly shattered because he is quite different from those who are raised from birth according to noble customs, while he is not. He was called a lowborn who struggles to handle his utensils correctly. He began to put in a lot more effort into his studies and swordsmanship, while Shauna would shower him with praise. But deep down, he knows that the true indestructible ruler is his sister Ophelia. Shauna has always encouraged him to go after what Ophelia has, which made him wonder if without that goal, does he even belong in the palace? However, what he dislikes even more is that Ophelia herself seems to want him to hate her, creating a distance between them. So right now, as Iwout is falling and nearing his end, he surprisingly feels a sense of freedom. Not today, little buddy, because Big Sister is here to save the day. Didier shares that the magical barrier is limiting the flow of mana, so while the revival magic is helping to slow down Iwout's fall, he is still going to descend. Ophelia asks Didier for help, but he turns her down. So our girl has to take matters into her own hands and jump in to save Iwout. However, Iwout hesitates to take Ophelia's hand because he believes he needs to sacrifice himself to save her. To his surprise, Ophelia embraces him and reassures him that they will face this together before they both fall. Darling, you really succeeded in winning over your brother in this life. Kirsten is certain that Ophelia is at the village that's a 4-day trip away from this mountain, so he is now frightened to see her fall with Iwout. How did Ophelia make this happen? Well, last night when they were debating how they could protect the village from the monsters while still going on their trip to repair the barrier, Ophelia decided to cut her hair, shocking Isaac and Now. Still, the two men followed her commands to remain still and shrugged their shoulders, but in the end, she chose Isaac as her body double to deceive Kirsten, who may be observing them from afar. She then plans to repair the barrier herself while Isaac and Now stay behind to protect the people. In the present, Isaac walks into Ophelia's sleeping quarters and finds the box Iwout left for him. He then opens it and is surprised to discover a warp scroll, an artifact that lets you travel long distances, making him think that Iwout had it ready for an emergency. Isaac then rips the scroll apart and demands to be transported to Ophelia's location. Meanwhile, the siblings barely escaped falling because Ophelia's robe got caught on a tree. She then realizes that Iwout has an extremely high fever, which sends her into a panic, and she becomes increasingly worried about finding a place to hide before Kirsten finds them. She grows frustrated when suddenly, a silhouette of Isaac appears, causing her eyes to widen in surprise. Isaac smiles, reassuring her that everything will be fine now that they are together. Isaac promptly hugs her, telling her that he admires how she works on things on her own, but that staying by her side is his selfish wish, causing Ophelia to break down. He gently kisses her, and from a distance, Kirsten watches them, tears streaming down his face, wondering why Ophelia chose Isaac when he had feelings for her first. He is convinced that Ophelia loved him too, but Didier reminds him that he has already lost her, and that she would choose Isaac regardless of how much she regresses. This makes Kirsten react furiously, prompting Didier to tap him on the head, which causes Kirsten to instantly fall to the ground, and Didier declares that she will cease interfering in insignificant human matters. Afterward, Ophelia, Iwout, and Isaac safely return to the village using the magic warp. That night, Ophelia asks Isaac to look after Iwout, but before Isaac leaves, he begs her not to go anywhere without him, and Ophelia just playfully assures him that he doesn't need to remind her. Didier then appears to inform Ophelia that the Empire may suffer some damage, but if she returns to the capital immediately, she will have a happy ending. While everything Didier says seems like a dream to Ophelia, she insists that the barrier has not yet been repaired and that Iwout's fever is worsening, which means they cannot stay there much longer. Therefore, she declares that they should head there that night to quickly close the barrier and return by the next day. As they begin their journey, Ophelia notices Didier is acting strangely, prompting Didier to lean closer before revealing that they may soon have to part ways. Ophelia agrees since Didier will return to the magic tower after the barrier is fixed. I don't think she meant that, sweetheart. Didier changes into a handsome man with white, dazzling hair and begins explaining why monster corpses create riel flowers. Monsters eat anything that is unique, harmful, or foreign, and the energy they obtain is turned into mana, which blossoms into riel flowers after they pass away. Thanks for the info, I guess? It's already daylight when they arrive near the barrier, and Didier notices several broken seals that need to be checked. Ophelia finds it odd that Didier is acting so kind to her now, which reminds her of how Didier talked goodbye last night, so Ophelia uses the chance to thank her for her assistance in repairing the barrier. Ophelia then smiles warmly, emphasizing how crucial the Empire's safety is to her because it is where her little brother and everyone else lives. She's showing her gratitude because Didier might leave without saying goodbye. They continue their walk for Didier's inspection, but Ophelia has a bad feeling as the surroundings become increasingly strange. Didier suddenly talks about Kirsten, arguing that Kirsten's strength is not solely due to the vast amount of mana he possesses, but that magic has chosen and requires Kirsten. Didier reveals her true self, smirking evilly as she confesses that she has no intention of repairing the barrier, and then traps Ophelia in a magical cage. Didier explains that she isn't taking sides, as her focus is on protecting the cycle of mana. It seems that Kirsten is meant to be the next guardian of mana, but he has fallen in love with Ophelia. The revival magic that has been cast on Ophelia has drained the world's mana, but Didier occasionally loses sight of this fact as she, too, is captivated by how endearing Ophelia is. Since ancient times, a guardian of mana has watched over the birth and death of mages to keep the world's mana balanced. But magic is currently drying out due to Ophelia's regression. Kirsten can stop this if he does his role, but Ophelia questions it because he doesn't have any mana left, causing Didier to compare Ophelia to a riel flower. She must perish so that Kirsten can absorb the powerful mana within her. In Didier's enormous size, she easily buried Ophelia in the snow and summoned Kirsten, telling him that if he takes Ophelia's mana, she will be his forever. Just the thought of forever made Kirsten eagerly agree. It's clear that Ophelia can't be killed by just anyone, as the revival magic means only Iwout has that ability. Didier is pretty sure that Iwout will do it, so both she and Kirsten think it's best to leave for now. As expected, the soldiers discover Ophelia, and when she wakes up, she finds herself next to Iwout, who is in pain and asleep. Isaac assures her that everything will be all right, and that, despite the fact that the barrier has crumbled and Didier, the only one who can repair it, the Empire has a great military force, assistance from the Magic Tower, and support from neighboring nations. They return to the palace, and Ophelia isn't feeling any better because she can feel the revival magic at work, but she doesn't want to die just yet. She hopes now will protect the Empire even if she is gone, while Isaac? As the magic in the world begins to fade, it signals a time when she won't be able to regress anymore, and the Isaac she knows will be gone. She will always hold dear the memories of the Isaac who loves her, and she intends to continue moving forward with those memories in her heart. She enters Iwout's room where he is currently sleeping, as Kirsten appears outside the window. He asks for permission to enter, and she grants it since she lacks the power to deny him, although he reminds her of Kirsten, whom she once knew. Ophelia takes a seat next to Iwout's bed and asks calmly whether Kirsten has come to kill her or Iwout. This prompts Kirsten to unsheath his sword and point it at Ophelia, which our girl understands given that it is his duty to restore magic to the world. He trembles and his voice shakes as he says that once he absorbs her mana, he will turn back in time to before she met Isaac and still loved him. Kirsten uses his power to get Iwout to hate Ophelia, since once he does, Ophelia can be executed. Poor Iwout is resisting, giving him so much suffering, so Ophelia decides to play the villain again, telling him that she murdered his mother and that he should simply stop resisting. Iwout yells and begs that someone will end the suffering, causing Ophelia to cry before putting on a mask and evilly declaring that she does not like him at all. Where's Isaac? He's in his lab, peacefully asleep, all thanks to Didier's magic. Didier goes to check around and discovers that Isaac has been researching time to save Ophelia using the connection between mana and divine power, which is intriguing, but Didier burns them, claiming that it is all pointless now. After a while, she wakes him up and slowly fades away, smilingly stating that she sensed that things would turn out this way, which means the end of magic. Isaac is confused, and all he can think about is racing to where Ophelia is. This is making me all nervous. After Ophelia hurt Iwout's feelings, his suffering subsided, suggesting that he has stopped resisting the revival magic, so Ophelia urges Kirsten to kill her immediately. However, it appears that Iwout's pain has subsided because no matter what he hears, he will never despise her, and Kirsten has understood this as well. Kirsten is so defeated that he jumps out of the window, prompting Ophelia to grab him just in time for Isaac to arrive and save them. With the revival magic no longer working, Kirsten will never be able to return to the past, where Ophelia was his family, prompting Ophelia to remain silent for a while before instructing Isaac to imprison Kirsten. Ophelia collapses on her knees after they leave, realizing that they have finally overcome the revival magic. Iwout then approaches her and asks whether she truly assassinated his mother, before bowing to her and saying she may give him an answer tomorrow, and he goes. When Isaac returns to the room, Ophelia is in a panic about what to say to Iwout, prompting Isaac to inquire frankly if she truly killed Sitara. Technically, it was the original villainess Ophelia who murdered Iwout's mother, but she can't just claim to have transmigrated into Ophelia's body, right? Nonetheless, she insists that she did not kill Sitara. To help her calm down, Isaac gives her a kiss, and now she's all flustered and red. Today is a wonderful day for our girl because at last Kirsten has been captured. Iwout no longer hates her, and the revival magic can no longer be activated since the world's mana has significantly weakened. Ophelia is having tea with Isaac in the garden when they observe Kirsten go by and out of the prison. Isaac plans to handle it, but Ophelia believes they should simply follow Kirsten silently because, according to Didier, Kirsten is extremely short on mana and barely able to maintain his human form. She doesn't want to feel sad for a traitor who aimed at destroying the Empire, but as the person responsible for the extinction of magic, she believes this marks the end of Kirsten and archmages. Rumors circulated across the Empire that Kirsten is a traitor who summoned monsters to assassinate the Empress and Prince. If not for Ophelia's request not to harm him, Kirsten, who is aimlessly strolling through town, could have been beaten to death by the locals. Arsad is the only one bold enough to approach Kirsten, and Ophelia can hear Kirsten apologizing to his younger brother from a distance before leaving him crying as he walks away. Kirsten's last destination is the temple, which surprises Ophelia. She decides to follow him inside alone, which Isaac respects, but this guy makes sure to kiss her plenty before that. As soon as she enters, purple flowers bloom in front of her, and Kirsten greets her with a warm smile, reminding her of the flowers she held during their wedding. He's so weak that he's lying on the temple floor, and he's taking this last chance to apologize to her. He wants to tell her that the revival magic he cursed her with was an attempt to protect her, which she already knows, so she urges him not to say anything else because he appears to be in pain. She offers him the pain-relieving potion Isaac created for her, but he still dislikes Isaac and refuses. He reassures her that there won't be any more revivals, something he knows she has already figured out. However, knowing her tendency to overthink, he realizes she might spend forever feeling anxious about it. He says that she's now free from the never-ending cycle of death, but to his awe, she does not appear joyful and even begins crying, prompting him to add that for the last time, he wishes to see her smile. With his final ounce of mana, he requests that Didier use it to fix the damaged magical barrier that protects the empire Ophelia loves. Kirsten then says his goodbyes, but this time, for forever. Part of me wants to feel bad, but thinking about how Ophelia could have survived her first life if he hadn't gotten her killed after trying to put her on the throne, and how he was so obsessed that he screwed up a spell he cast, causing her so much misery, makes me reconsider. Anyway, Ophelia arrives at her meeting place with Iwout and informs him that she did not murder his mother, but that she lacks evidence to prove it. This reminds her of the time when they were falling from the mountain and Iwout asked her to be his sister, which made her realize that it didn't matter to him whether she was his mother's enemy, so she confidently asks him if he wants to be her brother. Iwout begins crying because he desperately wants to be her brother and doesn't care what anyone says, leading the two of them to cry and share a heartfelt hug. It's so heartwarming to see them let go of their heavy baggage and share such a sweet sibling moment. Today, Ophelia meets with Isaac to confess her desire to be greedy and hold on to what brings her joy. Him. Hearing her confession makes this guy blush so hard. I love that he's the endgame. 7 years have passed, and today, Lady Drayton, who resembles Ophelia, asks Nayu to be her escort for Prince Iwout's 17th birthday. When Nayu declines, he is slapped hard in the face, which puzzles him, prompting Iwout, who is sitting on a tree, to say that it is all because there's a rumor that Nayu likes the lady. Oh, my babies are all grown up! Nayu instantly denies this, but Iwout notices him glancing at the lady again, prompting him to boldly state that he has finally figured out who Nayu is in love with, but that he may be mixing adoration with romantic feelings for this person. Nayu returns to a lab where he works as an apothecary employee with the goal of becoming a healer one day, when a certain lady comes to mind who he believes is out of reach. Suddenly, the door opens, and Ophelia appears, asking for tea to help with her cough. While pouring the tea, Nayu asks the Empress what she thinks about love, which prompts our girl to realize that this must be about Lady Drayton. Nayu firmly denies this as a client enters the shop, but to his surprise, the guy slaps him, arguing that Nayu played with Lady Drayton's feelings. Before Nayu knows it, he's in a duel with that man, who appears to be an Imperial Knight. Iwout cheers for Nayu, whom he knows is skilled with a sword because Arsad had been their instructor since they were kids. But Nayu intends to lose so that Lady Drayton no longer misunderstands him. After hearing the uproar, the chief of the apothecary, Mr. Gorgeous Dad Father Isaac, appeared. People start chattering about how impressive it is that he gave up the chance to become the next high priest in order to become a healer. But what they are most envious of is that he is the Empress's lover. Nayu quickly asks Isaac what love is since he doesn't know the difference between love and adoration, while Isaac's gaze shifts to Lady Drayton behind, causing him to laugh and tell Nayu that he must discover it for himself. The duel begins, and Nayu is only on defense until Ophelia arrives to see him fight. He quickly becomes serious and wins, causing Lady Drayton to realize that it's not her that Nayu likes, but rather the Empress. Nayu approaches Ophelia and explains that he only fights when victory is certain because he despises losing. But this time he's fine with losing, leading our girl to believe he's referring to Lady Drayton. She pats his head and roots for him, unaware that the small kid is referring to her. Iwout smirks, seeing that Nayu is being true to himself, but he reminds him that he's Ophelia's favorite brother, while Isaac finds it cute that Nayu's first love is Ophelia. But he decides not to tell her about it since our girl is just happy to be the best sister to her two little brothers. Never thought Nayu would really fall for Ophelia. His first love and first heartbreak. Cute. Today, Isaac informs Ophelia that he will travel to his hometown to attend his sister's wedding, which she consents to. But to his surprise, Ophelia arrives all dressed up to join him on the day of his departure. Aww, see how cutely they hug each other? However, our guy has to spoil the moment by telling her that if she does get married, he wishes her not to have any children, which is very confusing, sir. Like, huh? They finally arrived, and Isaac's sister, Soleil, is so mesmerized with Ophelia's beauty that she can't believe she actually chose to date her brother. Actually, things are a little tense between the lovers after Isaac's previous remark, and Ophelia really wants to discuss it with him, but she is dragged by Soleil somewhere. Soleil introduces herself properly, noting that she and Isaac are not connected by blood, but that they were both orphans who were adopted by their healer father. All this time, She assumed that the letter Isaac wrote her, stating that he has been in a committed relationship with someone for 10 years and wishes to marry them, was a lie, leaving Ophelia startled that Isaac is considering marrying her. Ophelia meets with Isaac, who begins consoling her with his love because she appears anxious, prompting her to bring up the matter of what he stated earlier. He becomes serious and asks her whether she wants to have children, which irritates her. She clarifies that she dislikes the way he stated things, as if he doesn't care who she marries. She frankly informs him that he is the one she wants to be by her side for the rest of her life, but this makes her doubt that he does as well. Love how honest she is about her feelings. The truth is that Isaac is overthinking things since, as Empress, she is responsible for producing an heir, and he dislikes others putting pressure on her. Because divine power isn't working on her, having a child is extremely dangerous, and the mere thought of her becoming pregnant with his kid causes him great anxiety, which is why he ends up saying things he did not mean, for which he apologizes. Isaac has been thinking about marrying her for 10 years, and since she's the one who's late, she places a flower ring on his finger and asks him to marry her, making him all giddy and giving her a big hug. The next day, everyone is amazed by the extravagant wedding venue, and when Prince Iwout personally arrives to take Ophelia back to the palace, people finally recognize her true identity. They immediately bow down to her while our couple shares a sweet kiss inside the carriage. Yes, she totally deserves that happy ending. Really, I hope we can all find our own safe space and someone who will bring us peace through whatever chaos we're dealing with. By the way, where's mine now? Was he too heartbroken to show up? Anyway, thank you for watching till the end. See you in the next story.